A colossal purple demon roars with guttural fury, erupting from the shattered floor. Looming over the hero, he expresses disbelief at being defeated by a mere human. The hero calmly addresses the Demon King, Madre North, stating their long battle is finally over. As the hero charges his sword, the demon vows his essence will be reborn eternally. Crying out Ragnarok Caliber, the hero unleashes a devastating wave of brilliant blue energy. Now kneeling alone, the hero reflects that he has finally succeeded in his mission. He muses that if this were a role-playing game, this would be the end. This would be the part where the triumphant ending movie begins to play. His thoughts drift back to being summoned from Earth years ago for this duty. A flashback shows his companions celebrating their hard-won and glorious victory. Overcome with emotion, he throws his fist in the air, screaming that he is finally free. At a grand celebration in the Hajimeno Kingdom, the hero Short is hailed by a cheering crowd. King Zamasari I thanks him profusely for saving their world from the brink of destruction. Leaning in conspiratorially, the king offers Short a truly special reward for his great deeds. With a grand gesture, he offers the hand of his very own daughter in marriage. The king formally permits the marriage between the hero and the beautiful Princess Trappia. From her seat, the princess watches the proceedings with a calculating and intense gaze. Approaching with a sweet and gentle smile, Princess Trappia greets the hero by name. Taking his hands, she expresses her belief that the kingdom will now prosper with his power. Her expression darkens as she whispers that she has acquired a weapon of mass destruction. Short is left completely confused by her strange talk of the future. Trappia grandly addresses the crowd, declaring her intention to continue ruling the world. Watching her, Short realizes he has a different goal in mind for his own future. He interrupts the festivities, asking how he can return to his original world. The joyous expressions of the king and princess instantly sour into looks of annoyance. Short's thoughts reveal he is not from this world, but was suddenly brought from Earth. He recalls being told his destiny was to defeat the Demon King, given no choice. His life became an endless and brutal cycle of daily combat. Gritting his teeth, he remembers his exhaustion, declaring he's had enough of this life. A younger, tearful version of him stands before the imposing princess. In the present, he asks the king if they've found the summoning magic. Looking away guiltily, the king admits that the magic was a one-way trip. Pressed further, the king snaps, shouting that there is no magic to send him back. Princess Trappia smugly explains they wouldn't research a way for their greatest asset to leave. She condescendingly tells him to give up and help build their kingdom instead. The princess looks on with a sparkling, self-satisfied expression, pleased with her logic. A close-up on her eye reveals her calculating thoughts of securing a powerful diplomatic card. Short realizes with a grimace that he has been completely trapped by the royals. He understands now they never had any intention of letting him return home. His quiet desire hardens into an angry, desperate demand to return to Earth. His mind flashes back to the simple pleasures of his old life, smartphones and gacha games. He remembers the mundane routine of oversleeping and being late for school. He desperately yearns to experience one of those perfectly ordinary mornings again. Facing the royals, his desperation and defiance are clear on his face. The king patronizingly offers to take care of him, dismissing his life on Earth as trash. The princess adds that Earth has no real entertainment to offer him anyway. The king muses that he'd love to experience the anime and manga from Earth. Dismissing Short's concerns entirely, the king smiles and claps his hands together. He loudly orders his servants to prepare for a grand celebratory feast. Realizing their plan, Short lunges at the trembling king, shouting that he won't be a puppet. Princess Trappia intervenes, grabbing his arm and asking what he thinks he's doing. She questions if he is dissatisfied with their generous offer of marriage. A close-up on her eye reveals her cold, calculating, and ruthless nature. Short thinks to himself that while she may not be evil, he cannot accept this fate. He looks at her with a bead of sweat, understanding the gravity of her intentions. With a menacing rumble, she declares she will protect her country at any cost. In a surprising move, Short pats her hand dismissively, getting her attention. With a cheerful smile, he bluntly declares that for him, this is physiologically impossible. The princess's face freezes into a mask of pure, stunned disbelief. Her hand is left hanging in the air, her grip tightening in white-knuckled frustration. He states that she needed someone to tell her a firm and unequivocal no. He declares their compatibility problem solved and that her request was rude. With a final dismissive "excuse me," he turns his back to leave. The enraged king screams that the hero is escaping and orders his mages to capture him. Two mages unleash binding spells, chanting magic web and magic string. Short struggles, thinking these bonds are nothing compared to a demon general's attacks. Princess Trappia lets out a furious scream as a dark, murderous aura explodes from her. With a powerful burst of energy, Short shatters the magical bonds around him. He announces his high-speed movement magic and smashes straight through the castle wall. The king cries out that he's escaped while the princess seethes in frustration. She clenches her fist, vowing that she will absolutely not let him get away. Her face is a mask of grim determination as she vows to make Short hers. She stands on the edge of the broken wall, staring out at the distant horizon. A wide shot shows the vast, sprawling kingdom he has just fled. Sprinting through a forest, Short pants that he thought this would be his ticket home. A text panel states that the hero defeated the Demon King. Another panel explains that he then fled the kingdom he saved. A final panel declares this the unexpected start of his wandering life. He reflects that this must be the unexpected post-game content of his real-life RPG. Lying exhausted in a grassy clearing, he tries to rest for a moment. His eyes suddenly snap open with a look of sudden alertness. Sitting up, he spots a river nearby and scratches his head in thought. Deciding to take a brief break, he approaches the water's edge. With a simple hand sign, he performs a magic release spell. A faint glow dissipates from his body as his immense power is sealed away. A thin wisp of energy rises as a small explosion of dust marks the release. He lies exhausted in a crater of ice, lamenting his lack of magical control. Stumbling towards a river, he decides to get a much-needed drink of water. He observes the clean water, but a sudden instinct screams that it's a terrible idea. A horned woman appears, startling him and confirming the water is unsafe to drink raw. He trembles, contemplating whether to drink the water in his hands anyway. A sharp pain hits his stomach and he collapses as the woman's family arrives. The large horned man calls out to the young man writhing on the ground. He grimly asks if he drank the river water, which the young man confirms. The man explains the dangers of the wilderness while his daughter runs to find herbs. The young man is consumed by regret, realizing his ignorance of basic survival. Gritting his teeth, he resolves to use his self-created detoxification magic, Dr. Rule. The horned man is surprised by this, asking if he is a magic user. The young man thinks that being revealed as the hero would be a hassle. He strikes a theatrical pose, proudly announcing he is a man who can use a bit of magic. A large horned man named Burst observes that the young man can use some kind of magic. He notes that while the young man isn't hostile, he remains extremely guarded. A horned woman, Katrina, returns, announcing she has found the detoxifying herbs. She asks about his stomach, and he remembers he already used his magic to heal himself. Katrina holds the herbs, a questioning look on her face as she offers them. The young man's gaze is focused and intense as he looks at the offered herbs. He eagerly reaches out, asking her to quickly give him the medicinal plants. He messily chews the leaves, declaring himself cured and thanking her for her help. He boasts that medicine is highly effective for him, leaving Katrina perplexed. Katrina smiles brightly, just happy that he is feeling better now. Noticing a scratch on her arm, he apologizes for causing her to get injured. He casts a self-created healing spell, Kusuganail, on her arm. Katrina gasps in utter amazement at the magical healing sensation. She leaps with joy, exclaiming how incredible it is that he can use magic. She then realizes that if he had detoxifying magic, the herbs were unnecessary. Burst muses that the young man is probably not a poison user after all. His muscular arm is shown in a close-up, emphasizing his strength. Burst lets out a soft chuckle as the two young people interact. He asks the young man where he plans to go from here. Overcome with drama, the young man covers his face and pleads not to be asked. He strikes a pose, proclaiming he is a warrior with no destination. Burst and Katrina stare at him with perfectly blank, unimpressed expressions. Katrina covers her mouth, trying her best to stifle a sudden laugh. The trio erupts in shared, hearty laughter at his ridiculous antics. The peaceful forest canopy is shown, setting a tranquil scene. Burst jokes that if left alone, the young man would die from eating a poisonous mushroom. The young man questions the wisdom of inviting a complete stranger into their home. Burst effortlessly lifts him off the ground with a single powerful hand. He warns that a dangerous creature called a Sakwari will eat him. Katrina proudly confirms that her father is a professional at self-sufficiency. The young man realizes with fiery determination that self-sufficiency is what he needs most. A close-up shows the detailed buckle on the young man's clothing. He shakes Burst's hand enthusiastically, begging to be taken in. Burst introduces himself and his daughter, Katrina. The young man looks flustered, about to reveal his former identity. He stammers, "Hero shirt," but cuts himself off as Katrina asks for his name. He reflects on his decision to cast aside his title as the hero. He resolves to leave the battlefield behind in pursuit of a slow life. His fist clenches with newfound determination. He introduces himself as Short, a novice mountain walker, and they welcome him. The newly formed group of 3 stands together in the forest. Katrina leads the way with a cheerful and welcoming expression. She waves them forward, calling out that this is the right direction. Short follows, vowing to do his best at his new slow life. He spots mushrooms, but Katrina quickly warns him that they are deadly poisonous. They arrive at a charming wooden cabin nestled in a forest clearing. Short's face fills with manic resolve, thinking his slow life begins now. His confidence crumbles into panic as he asks what he should do. Burst, holding a cleaver, asks Short if he has ever chopped wood. Short says he's seen it in anime, leaving Burst utterly confused by the term. Burst tells him to watch and demonstrates the proper technique. He brings the axe down with a powerful and expert form. The log splits cleanly in 2 with a satisfying thwack. Short claps his hands, exclaiming how magnificent the display was. Burst accepts the praise with a modest closed-eye smile. Eager to try, Short says that he has his own blade. He draws his legendary and ornately decorated holy sword. A description identifies the weapon as the Holy Sword X Ragnarok caliber. Burst warns him not to use such a powerful sword for this task. Short prepares to swing, noting that it feels like cutting through tofu. He struggles to lift the heavy and powerful weapon into position. He puts all of his immense strength into the downward swing. The sword slices through the log and chopping block with overwhelming ease. Burst's own powerful swing accidentally obliterates a mountaintop in the distance. The resulting shockwave sends everyone tumbling to the ground in chaos. Katrina loses her balance and begins to fall backward. Short reacts instantly, lunging forward to catch her in his arms. He notes with a blissful expression how soft and light she feels. A terrified Katrina asks what just happened to cause the tremor. Short smugly explains he used his time-space magic to undo the event. An image of clockwork gears illustrates his ability to rewind time. The catastrophic event is erased, leaving Burst and Katrina completely confused. Burst dismisses the strange feeling he had as just his imagination. Short laughs internally, reveling in how useful his skills are for daily life. He refocuses, ready to tackle the wood chopping once more. He prepares to bring his axe down on a new log. With a powerful battle cry, he swings with immense force. The log shatters into a pile of perfect firewood, startling Katrina. He confidently brushes off her concern about his exertion. Burst observes that Short put a little too much power into that swing. Katrina flexes her bicep, boasting that she can chop wood too. She tells Short to watch as she prepares to chop a log. Her father notes that wood chopping is a difficult mission even for a hero. Despite her clumsy form, she successfully splits the log in 2. The group claps happily around the resulting campfire they have built. Burst puts an arm around Short, praising his good work. His expression turns mischievous as he gets an idea. He leans in and asks if someone like Short is Katrina's type. Burst laughs heartily as Katrina playfully punches him in embarrassment. She storms off to make dinner, leaving a blushing Short behind. Burst explains that his daughter is at an age where she feels lonely. He asks Short if he will be her companion while he is there. Short eagerly agrees, thinking of the skills he can learn from her. Burst tells him to start by mastering the art of wood chopping. Short dedicates himself to the task with intense, focused concentration. He chops wood alongside Burst, learning from his expert technique. He holds up a perfectly split piece, having completely mastered the skill. He visualizes the firewood being used for cooking and heating a bath. He exclaims that he's leveling up his new wood chopping skill. Burst overhears him mention hero, but Short quickly dismisses it as nothing. Burst praises Short's wood chopping skills, telling him he has worked hard. He then promises to teach Short other useful skills besides wood cutting later. Short reflects on how profound and complex this new slow life truly is. A bead of sweat drips down his face, showing his intense focus. He grips a piece of his handiwork, a competitive grin on his face. Internally, he declares that Burst presents a worthy and interesting challenge. Night falls over the forest, a bright crescent moon hanging in the sky. A large, steaming bowl of stew is presented ready for dinner. Short sits eagerly at the table, ready to enjoy the evening meal. He devours the stew, amazed to be eating such a meal in this remote place. Holding up his empty bowl, he enthusiastically asks for a second helping. Katrina happily agrees to get him more as Burst observes his appetite. Burst explains they've had stew for 3 days since Short's arrival helped. Katrina ladles more, saying stew is the best way to use fresh meat. With a playful wink, she reveals she uses every part of the animal. A spoonful of the rich stew is shown, described as delicious. Taking a bite, Short notes a faint but distinct gamey odor. His eyes widen in delight as he identifies a refreshing herb in the stew. He continues to eat, savoring the perfect, delicious flavor. Katrina watches with a pleased smile as he eats with gusto. Patting his stomach, a satisfied Short declares he has eaten his fill. Burst is shocked that he ate 7 bowls despite his smaller frame. Short explains his high fuel consumption is due to his magic and skills. He puts his hands together, formally thanking Katrina for the wonderful meal. Katrina is surprised by his formal expression of gratitude. He explains that in his homeland, it means the food was delicious. Katrina and Burst are both happy that he enjoyed it so much. He gets up from the table, his bowl still in hand. He moves towards the door, ready to take on a new task. He reflects on the important lessons he's learned since coming to this world. Katrina asks if he's really going to have another helping. With a determined look, Short announces that he will wash the dishes. Surprised, Katrina tells him he can use the water stored outside. He spots the large water container near the door, confirming her directions. Stepping outside, he observes that the darkness is lit only by the moon. He looks up at the slim crescent moon in the quiet night sky. A thoughtful, wry smile crosses his face as he contemplates his situation. While washing, he recalls defeating the Demon King just a few days ago. His memory shows him being unceremoniously banished from the kingdom afterward. He glances back at the warm light coming from the cabin's doorway. He muses on the irony of eating stew with an ogre family. He reflects on how unpredictable life is, especially for a summoned hero. Katrina calls his name from the doorway, breaking his train of thought. She cheerfully asks if he wants to use the bath, which is now ready. Overjoyed by the offer, he enthusiastically dashes towards the bath. Katrina thoughtfully considers the best way to heat the bath water. Short, a hand on his chin, also ponders the logistical problem. He recalls that they have water set aside for washing dishes. He excitedly proposes a plan to use the bath water, then boil more. With a confident expression, he tells his companions to leave it to him. Burst laughs, teasing him about his strenuous approach to a slow life. Katrina cheers him on as he resolves to do his best. He proudly carries an armful of the firewood he chopped himself. He approaches the large wooden tub set upon a stone furnace. Peering over the edge, he wonders how the tub doesn't burn. He discovers the clever design, realizing the bottom is made of iron. He admires the rustic charm of the open-air bath under the night sky. With a loud splash, he begins pouring water into the large tub. He kneels down, placing kindling into the furnace's opening. He focuses his intent, preparing to ignite the tinder. He unleashes a small fire spell, a swirling vortex of flame. He watches with satisfaction as the fire roars to life. Looking at the tub, he confirms the water is beginning to warm up. Katrina appears, wrapped modestly in a towel, ready for her bath. Short watches her approach, determined to control the temperature perfectly. His eyes narrow with intense focus on the important task. He reminds himself that he is not a hero now, just a bath attendant. He blushes as he hears her get in and exclaim how warm it is. Katrina sighs in pure bliss, remarking how much she loves baths. Short grins proudly, pleased with his successful work. He thinks to himself that he is quite good at imagining and creating things. Burst comments from a distance that the bath turned out very well. Short wonders aloud if he possesses an unexpected talent for preparing baths. He decides with manic certainty that he absolutely has a talent for it. His concentration is broken when Katrina yelps that the water is getting too hot. In a panic, he casts a cooling spell, making the water freezing instead. Suddenly, Katrina is startled by something else in the tub with her. Short, oblivious, smirks, thinking he has finally perfected the temperature. He has a brief, inappropriate thought about her well-developed figure. A massive splash erupts as she screams, accosted by small slime creatures. Thrown back by the splash, he groans as she runs away, calling him a lecher. He resolves to use his memory skill to burn the risque image into his mind. He covers his face, groaning her name in a mix of pain and embarrassment. Burst appears, flexing his massive muscular physique with a satisfied grunt. He tells a terrified Short that it's his turn to use the bath next. The next morning, a new peaceful day begins at the cabin. Short's eyes flutter open as he awakens in his bed of pelts. He sits up, marveling at the simple but profound luxury of having a roof. He washes his face, feeling civilized after so much time spent camping. He splashes the cool water vigorously onto his face. He feels that this simple act is the height of civilization. He laughs, remembering his past life of constantly sleeping outdoors. Stepping outside, he greets Burst, who is already hard at work. A wooden bucket swings on the yoke Burst is carrying on his shoulders. Short looks at the buckets, asking what they are for. Burst explains that drawing water is his daily morning routine. He tells Short they need to make several trips to fill the water jugs. Short considers using his magic to make the task easier. He thinks of his item box storage magic to carry all the water at once. He ultimately decides against it, choosing to embrace the manual labor. A young man named Short enthusiastically asks to borrow a water-carrying yoke from a large, horned man, Bruce. Gripping the wooden pole, Short resolves to fully embrace and master the slow life. Hoisting the heavy buckets, he decides he must pave his own way with his own 2 feet. As he strains under the weight, Short reflects on how useful his hero powers are for this manual labor. Brust questions the mention of a hero, so Short quickly dismisses it, calling himself a simple water carrier. Upon arriving at a wide river, Short recognizes it as the very place where he first met Bruce. He's surprised when Bruce warns him that the water from this river is not safe to drink as is. A bucket is filled from the flowing river, with Brust clarifying that this is indeed the water they use. A flashback reveals Katrina boiling a large pot, explaining the water is potable once heated. The memory continues, showing Katrina doing laundry, establishing their perfect division of household labor. Short declares that this wonderful role sharing is the very essence of the slow life he seeks. Smoke rises from their cabin's chimney, a sign of the domestic life they are building together. Water is shown being poured into a large barrel, a symbol of their shared effort and preparation. Brust comments that even for 2 people, this is a substantial amount of water to haul. He reflects on how, until just yesterday, he had to perform this arduous task all by himself. Short smiles with quiet confidence, thinking that now he is here to help his friend. He then boldly boasts that his presence has increased their efficiency by a factor of 20. Brust's deadpan expression reveals his complete skepticism at Short's exaggerated claim. Short laughs nervously as Brust chides him for making such a grand and boastful statement. He internally reflects that he was trying to be humble, but still has a long way to go. His slightly embarrassed expression shows his self-awareness of his lingering arrogance. Playfully changing the subject, he asks his new master what their next task will be. With a grin, Short asks if Bruce will be his official slow life master. A portrait of Bruce captures his flustered and slightly embarrassed reaction to the new title. Short observes with amusement that his new master is blushing from the unexpected praise. A bucket is shown being filled once more, signaling the completion of their water gathering task. With their containers full, Short announces that it's finally time for them to head back home. He notices Bruce has stopped, looking serious, and asks him what seems to be the matter. As they walk, Bruce remarks on Short's surprising power for someone of his small build. Short cheerfully explains that his incredible strength comes from his high level. Brust's eyes narrow in confusion, as he has never encountered this strange term before. Short becomes flustered, while Bruce concedes that his physical strength is undeniably impressive. A text panel explains that people in this world are generally unaware of having a level. Brust's puzzled expression, complete with a question mark, highlights his utter confusion. A close-up shot of a level 15 label serves to illustrate the very concept of levels. Overlooking a vast fortified city, the narrative states that in this world, level is a real concept. A flashback shows a younger Short, a mere level 3, surrounded by far more powerful individuals. The memory continues, showing him undergoing a relentless training regimen to efficiently raise his level. Text panels reveal that he shattered the supposed limits of leveling, acquiring countless skills. He is shown triumphantly defeating the Demon Lord alone, roaring out his newfound freedom. He then recalls his former party members, noting their combat prowess was a different matter. A panel acknowledges that they too worked hard and struggled to overcome their own limits. The memory turns painful as he remembers discovering his two companions had become a couple. In the present, he hunches over in anguish, bitter about the chances his own timidity cost him. Brust notices his friend's grim expression and asks what is making him look so terrible. Short quickly apologizes, explaining he was simply lost in thought about some internal struggles. With a faint understanding smile, Short appreciates Brust's wise acceptance of his personal burdens. Their feet are shown standing on the rocky ground, sharing a moment of quiet camaraderie. Brust observes that for someone who appears so young, Short has a strangely distant look in his eyes. In a serene landscape, Bruce muses that a brave man like Short can be found anywhere. A close-up on Brust's thoughtful face shows him processing his own past losses and memories. He closes his eyes, a look of quiet, world-weary contemplation on his face. Bruce places a comforting and supportive hand on Short's shoulder in a gesture of understanding. They stand together, looking out at a vast landscape, silently acknowledging a shared experience of perseverance. Their somber moment is broken by Katrina's cheerful call from their house that breakfast is ready. The two men immediately rush towards the house, their serious mood completely forgotten. Katrina presents an extra-large portion just for Short, who is overjoyed by her thoughtfulness. Her warm, gentle smile fills him with a sense of peace and profound happiness. A caption expresses how Katrina's radiant smile has the power to wash away all his worries. With renewed vigor, Short declares goodbye to his past and hello to his bright future. He eats with immense enthusiasm while his companions watch with amusement and affection. He takes a massive, satisfying bite of a piece of what appears to be bread. His cheeks are puffed out with food as he savors the hearty and delicious meal. He notes that the staple food in this particular region seems to be potatoes. He then imagines how incredibly delicious the stew would be if it were eaten with fresh bread. His face scrunches up in intense concentration as a new and powerful goal forms in his mind. His eyes fly open with a flash of fiery determination and a brand new purpose. He declares that his immediate goal is a simple but profound one for his new life. A close-up shows his hands holding a loaf of bread, symbolizing his new culinary quest. A shot of an empty pitcher on a table signifies the start of a new ambitious project. He reasons that in order to eat bread, he must first learn how to make it. A moment of doubt crosses his mind as he considers the monumental task ahead of him. He freezes in place, realizing with a sweat drop that he has no idea what bread is even made of. Katrina calls out to him from outside, interrupting his internal culinary crisis. She and her father stand ready with a basket, waving for him to join them for potato digging. He quickly agrees, understanding that securing their staple food supply is the immediate priority. Brust jokes that with another big eater in the house, they will need to dig up much more. Blushing, Katrina shyly admits that she just wanted to have a meal together with him. Short looks at her, his expression filled with a gentle, fond, and undeniable affection. A close-up on his face reveals his internal thought. He finds her incredibly cute. Brust playfully pushes a flustered Short along, telling him to stop his lecturing. Out in the field, Short effortlessly shatters a large rock with a single stomp of his foot. Brust is astounded by his strength, which Short casually attributes to his high level. Brust then teases that he should show Katrina a thing or two about controlling her own strength. Enraged by the comment, Katrina appears, protesting that she isn't like that at all. She punches her father playfully in the arm, her frustration clearly evident in the blow. In her fit of pique, she stomps her foot and the very ground cracks beneath its force. Short is stunned by the sound, recognizing the immense destructive power of the ogre race. Brust explains that ogres possess physical strength many times that of a normal human. As Short walks alone through the wilderness, he wonders why such powerful people live in seclusion. A flicker of confusion crosses his face as he ponders the mystery of their situation. His expression becomes serious and somber as his thoughts turn to his own complicated past. A memory shows him tilling a field, determined to focus on his new, simple life. He reflects on his duty, knowing he cannot seek help from the kingdom that cast him out. The memory shows him as the hero who had to abandon his country in order to save it. A caption mentions Princess Trappia being cast out from a strategic political marriage. In a lavish office elsewhere, Princess Trappia lets out a frustrated and weary sigh. An attendant instructs her to deliver a letter to the guildmaster and then take a rest. She is incandescent with rage at the timing, with the Demon Lord's army at the gates. She slams her fist on the desk, screaming that if only the living weapon Short were there. A furious voice shouts about an idiot as a hand slams down, breaking a quill pen. Short reflects with a stressed expression that Princess Trapia was truly a frightening person. He concludes that she saw him as a mere tool, devoid of any real affection. With a confident nod, he confirms his intuition about her motives was correct. A simplified, chibi version of Short reacts with alarm to the quill. Elsewhere, Princess Trapia muses regretfully that he truly is an idiot. The scene transitions with a soft gray gradient. A large wicker basket overflowing with tubers signifies a bountiful harvest. Short considers eating a tuber raw, much to Katrina's visible shock. With wide, panicked eyes, Katrina shouts his name, warning him it's poisonous. She explains the lengthy boiling process needed to remove the toxins, stunning him. He realizes with horror that the world is filled with poisonous things. It dawns on him that he likely would not have survived for long on his own. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he grabs Katrina's hands, thanking her and burst. A flustered Katrina waves her hands, insisting that it was nothing at all. She shyly hugs one of the large tubers as Short thinks how cute she is. Short later asks Burst why they don't just harvest all the tubers at once. He realizes that relying solely on nature for food lacks stability. He then suggests they try cultivating the plants, an idea Burst agrees with. The hero imagines a slow life that involves carefully tending a farm field. Burst reveals that he has actually tried to start a farm many times before. He explains that a giant monstrous boar destroyed all his previous attempts. A spark of insight hits Short as he connects the boar to their stew meat. He laments their need for a stable supply of both meat and crops. His eyes narrow with intense focus as a brilliant idea suddenly strikes him. He excitedly explains his plan to use the field as bait to hunt the boars. With heroic fervor, he vows to build a field strong enough to repel the demon lord. Katrina watches him go, asking if this is his dream, which he confirms. He grandly announces his goal is to eat bread, but sheepishly admits he can't make it. Katrina and Burst are left completely bewildered, admitting they don't know either. With a small laugh, Katrina says that none of them have any idea how to make it. Burst scratches his head, noting the monumental difficulty of making bread from scratch. Unfazed, Short confidently quotes the proverb about a journey of 1,000 miles. Inspired by his determination, Katrina clenches her fists and offers to help. His eyes burn with resolve as he declares the first step is perfecting the field. He dramatically renames himself, proclaiming he is now Short, the Field Artisan. Inspired, Burst flexes his muscles, offering his strength to help clear the land. Short cheers as they survey the newly cleared, though chaotic, plot of ground. Burst explains that clearing the forest was easier since boars had already ravaged it. Kneeling down, Short closely examines the freshly upturned earth. He muses that the destruction is the handiwork of the very boars they hunt. A close-up shows his eye, gleaming with a hungry, strategic light. The text explains how Burst's defeat of the boar will not be in vain. He mentally dubs the boar Burst, which confuses the actual Burst standing nearby. He licks his lips, thinking how the boar's failure will become a delicious stew for him. As he kneels, he notices something unusual sticking out from the dirt. Reaching into the soil, his hand closes around a lumpy, round object. He pulls it out in surprise, asking aloud if it's a potato. Showing the tuber to Burst, he asks if he had planted it there. Burst recounts his failed attempt to grow Taimo potatoes in the difficult soil. Emerging from a shed, Burst reveals he still has a basket of leftover potatoes. He explains that his ogre tribe are hunters by nature, not suited for farming. He formally entrusts the task of farming to Short, the Field Artisan. Stunned by the gesture, Short lets out a choked cry as he accepts the heavy basket. Now equipped with a starting crop, he holds up a single potato to examine it. He determines it's a potato type, but definitely not a sweet potato. His expression shifts to one of intense focus and determination. He decides that the time has finally come to use his cheat as a reincarnated hero. He reflects that his modern world knowledge has often been useless here. But now, he realizes that knowledge is invaluable for achieving his slow life. A flashback shows him as a young schoolboy, learning how to grow potatoes. His younger self's blushing face is shown in a close-up. The young boy thinks to himself how much he wants to eat French fries. In the present, holding a bowl of cut potatoes, he still craves French fries. He passionately explains his technique of cutting at the potato's eyes to control sprouts. He holds up a piece, explaining planting it whole would result in tiny potatoes. With a flourish, he announces his intention to begin cutting the potatoes. A magical sound effect signifies the start of a powerful spell. Raising his hand, he prepares to unleash his incredible magic. He casts his self-named Dimension Kill magic on the humble tuber. A shimmering disc of energy flies swiftly towards the potato. The potato is instantly and perfectly sliced into several pieces. He's pleased with the result, noting it worked exactly as he intended. He muses that he's tearing space apart, but the world seems to be fine. Katrina appears suddenly, asking what that powerful magic was, startling him. She expresses her shock at the sudden, impressive view of his magic. In a panic, he casts time reversal magic to hide what he's just done. Katrina now approaches with gentle concern, asking if he's alright. He reflects on his automatic ether field defense magic. He wonders why he instinctively included Katrina and her father in its protection. He sits silently for a moment, contemplating this unconscious feeling. Katrina looks at him with a gentle, questioning smile. She presents him with a bento box, explaining she brought him lunch. He is deeply touched by her kindness, thinking how wonderful she is. He clenches his fist, his heart warmed by her thoughtful gesture. He thinks to himself that such a kind girl must surely want to get married. He then notices that the ceramic bowl she gave him is old and worn. She cheerfully tells him to just leave the old bowl behind to return to the earth. She explains that her father, Burst, will simply make a new one for them. With a soft smile, she says that everything they have, they made themselves. She reveals that she even sewed the very clothes she is currently wearing. She explains that her father was the one who cleared the land and built their home. Short realizes the immense hardship they endured to be self-sufficient. He watches her walk away, a new wave of empathy washing over him. His expression shifts from understanding to one of fiery determination. He declares that with him here, their slow life power is now 10 times stronger. Katrina is surprised by his bold statement, repeating 10 times in wonder. She bursts into a happy laugh, delighted by his confidence. Clenching her fists, she feels a surge of energy from his encouraging words. She vows not to be outdone and will focus on her own work while he farms. An empty bowl with a spoon resting inside makes a soft clattering sound. Finishing his meal, Short exclaims that Katrina's cooking has filled him with energy. With renewed vigor, he points to the land, announcing he will now plow the field. A shimmering, rectangular magical boundary instantly forms over the rough patch of ground. He casually tosses the lid from his lunch bowl into the center of the magical area. Unleashing his custom spell, he causes the designated earth to erupt with violent energy. Large clods of dirt are thrown into the air as the powerful magic works. He watches with keen interest as the churning ground begins to take on a new form. His eyes widen in amazement, wondering if this could possibly become a real field. All that is left to do now is to plant the potatoes in the prepared soil. He begins the next step, carefully placing potato pieces into the freshly tilled earth. He notes that this is a cultivation skill he certainly didn't learn in elementary school. With a determined wipe of his nose, he fully commits to his new agricultural task. Later that night, a bright full moon shines down on the peaceful landscape. Short sleeps soundly on a simple bed of hay, clad only in his shorts. His eyes suddenly snap open, wide with alarm as he senses a sudden intrusion. Sitting up instantly, he identifies the unwelcome visitors as potato thieves. He activates his self-named instantaneous movement magic, Shunshin. In a flash, he appears in the field, ready to confront the intruders. Two massive, ferocious wild boars grunt aggressively as they see him. He thinks to himself how he anticipated this, having set up a warning magic spell. He tells the boars that while he feels for them, they cannot have his potatoes. The enraged boars paw at the ground, preparing to charge forward with force. As they charge, he points to the side in a simple attempt to misdirect them. The charging beasts seem momentarily confused by his strange, unexpected gesture. He then reveals his true defense, a space fixation magic he has named Paikin. One boar slams headfirst into the invisible wall, its snout comically squished. Clenching his fist, Short declares that the law of the jungle is now in effect. A series of sound effects indicate a swift and decisive physical confrontation has occurred. Standing over the defeated boars, he calmly plans for a barbecue the next day. The next morning, he decides to use his storage magic on the carcasses for now. A dark vortex sucks the massive boar into a pouch, preserving it perfectly. He decides against a magical trap, concluding his personal watch is the safest option. The bright daytime sky signals the start of a new day in the village. Short works alongside Bruce, carrying heavy buckets of water with a yoke. Katrina brings out a platter of food, and Short leaps towards her eagerly. His face is a picture of pure, unadulterated joy as he anticipates the meal. At the table, he recounts how wild boars came after their potato patch. He reassures a shocked Bruce, boasting that he handled all of them himself. With a confident thumbs up, he gives himself the new title Boar Hunter Short. Katrina and Bruce laugh heartily at his constantly changing self-appointed nicknames. A view of their rustic log cabin establishes the peaceful, remote setting. Brust asks what happened to the boars, wondering about the butchering process. Short, with a mischievous glint in his eye, says he has something to show them. He dramatically pulls the enormous boar from the tiny pouch, shocking his friends. He proudly explains that this is his own creation. Storage Magic Item Box. Brust is stunned, asking if such a powerful magic tool already exists. He notes the similarity in name, though Short's version is clearly unique. A brief transitional panel shows vertical lines, indicating a shift in the scene. Katrina marvels at his skill, recognizing his new boar-exclusive storage magic. She beams at him, exclaiming how incredibly cool he is for his abilities. She then shyly asks if she can make a single request of him. Short realizes he should learn how to properly butcher the boar himself. He respectfully addresses Bruce as Master, asking for his expert instruction. Brust is completely flustered by the sudden and reverent title. Katrina giggles, finding it cute that her father is being so respected. Brust agrees to teach him, telling Short to watch carefully as he begins. He starts his lesson, explaining the importance of learning to butcher properly. He looks to the future, stating this knowledge will be indispensable for them. Katrina observes, commenting on how much fun her father seems to be having. She gives Short a playful wink, thanking him for making her father so happy. Short becomes flustered by her playful teasing, scratching the back of his head. Katrina speaks seriously, explaining how her father always tried to protect her. She reminds Short of his promise to help, admitting she was deeply worried. Brust, oblivious, continues his demonstration, expertly skinning the boar. Katrina recounts a past story of her father's failure and subsequent depression. She reveals the story is about a time he drank unboiled water and got sick. Short listens intently, a look of dawning comprehension on his face. He points to himself, asking if she's talking about him, which she happily confirms. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he lets out a flustered, high-pitched cry. Brust continues the lesson, but Short is too distracted to listen properly. Katrina tells him his help has been a great relief to her as well. He struggles to focus on Brust's lesson amidst her kind, distracting words. She shyly admits that she shouldn't have been so selfish with her teasing. She adds that with him around, she and her father are having much more fun. Her continued praise completely shatters his concentration, leaving him flustered. He clutches his head, unable to focus, while she giggles at his predicament. Later, long strips of salted pork hang from a branch, air drying in the shade. Brust explains the process of drying the meat they have butchered. He adds that drying it outside would be ideal, if not for wild animals. Short examines a piece of pure white fat, marveling at its incredible quality. Brust confirms the lard is delicious and should be preserved for later use. Holding a piece, Short wonders aloud if they should discard the excess fat. Katrina and her father share a knowing and amused look at his question. He sees Katrina at the stove and asks if she's throwing the fat away. She tends to a large pot, preparing a special meal for them all. She turns to him, announcing that she is making daytime rice. With a playful wink, she confirms that this will be their lunch. The lid is lifted to reveal a steaming, mouth-watering dish of stew. Short takes his first bite, noting his love for fatty meats like bacon. The rich, savory fat melts in his mouth, releasing an explosion of flavor. The incredible taste sends a literal jolt of lightning through his entire body. He is completely overwhelmed by the blissful and delicious sensation. He exclaims that it's unbelievably tasty, rich and full of umami, but not greasy. Katrina and her father smile, happy that he is enjoying the special meal. Brust explains that eating the lard right after butchering is a rare privilege. Katrina adds that the fat can also be used to make candles or medicine. Short is shocked to learn of its valuable and practical medicinal properties. He clenches his fist, declaring that this is the very essence of the slow life. 2 days later, a new chapter of their life is about to begin. Katrina smiles, pleased with the newly dried meat as Short takes a bite. He exclaims its concentrated flavor is better than store-bought meat. Brust holds up a massive boar hide, remarking that fresh meat is even better. Intrigued, Short eagerly asks Brust to teach him the art of tanning the hide. Katrina holds a bag of the dried meat as Brust and Short discuss carrying it. Learning they're going to the village for bartering, Short is shocked. Burst points out Short's tattered clothes, prompting Katrina to agree he needs new ones. Short is flustered by their concern, while Burst dismisses the need for fancy clothes. He reflects on the high cost of clothing due to the difficulty of growing cotton. A memory surfaces of Katrina explaining people just wear undergarments in the summer. She's seen from behind, her long braid prominent as she speaks. With a teasing smile, she asks if he's looking with lewd eyes. She then cheekily declares that summer is the season of love in her world. Now in autumn, Burst prepares to leave as Short notes the cooler weather. The large ogre man announces they have 3 boars worth of goods to trade. Short questions if that amount of meat and pelts will truly be enough. He clarifies his doubt, thinking it will only cover their own share. Burst scratches his head, acknowledging that it might be a meager amount. A feeling of frustration and unease settles over Short. His expression is one of cynical annoyance at the unfairness of their situation. Katrina clenches her fists, steeling herself for the trip to get fabric for Short. Short observes her determined posture, understanding the depth of her resolve. His own expression hardens as he realizes the true problem they face. He reflects on how demi-humans who followed the Demon Lord are seen as evil. His thoughts turn grim considering the fate of his own subordinates in the war. He maintains a serious, thoughtful expression, pondering the war's complexities. He realizes that humans were far more numerous among the Demon Lord's forces. Wondering about the number of traitors, he notes the prevalence of harmful rumors. With a fierce grin, he declares he will go with them and fix everything. His companions are stunned, asking how he could possibly accomplish that. He gives a confident thumbs up, playfully declaring his method is a secret. A wide shot shows the vast, mountainous landscape they must cross. The trio walks along a rugged path through the forest, carrying heavy packs. They take a break, with Short noting the journey is easy for the powerful ogres. He kindly offers to carry their heavy luggage using his item box magic. Burst gently refuses, explaining this is their way of welcoming a new companion. Katrina enthusiastically agrees, promising to make him clothes as a celebratory gift. Short is visibly touched by their kindness and heartfelt hospitality. They finally arrive, looking out at the village nestled at the foot of a mountain. He is surprised by the village's size, estimating about 100 residents. A blonde man with a spear offers a half-hearted unwelcoming greeting. His expression sours into a sneer as he recognizes them, asking what they want. Burst explains they've come to trade, but the man is dismissive and insulting. The man aggressively grabs Katrina's arm, saying he must inspect their strange goods. Katrina looks distressed and uncomfortable under his intimidating grip. A close-up shows his hand tightening on her arm, causing her to wince. Burst and Short look on with alarm and growing anger at the man's hostility. The blonde man scoffs, his expression one of pure disdain. Short asks Katrina a quick question just before he springs into action. With incredible speed, he delivers a powerful right hook, sending the man flying. The bully lies, groaning on the ground as Burst and Katrina stare in shock. Short calmly explains that he got angry and his actions were personal. The dazed man struggles to his knees, utterly confused about what just happened. He looks up in a daze, unable to comprehend the sudden, powerful attack. Short kneels, placing a hand on the man's forehead with a calm expression. He casts a spell called Evil Dream Magic Nightmare Eternal, terrifying the man. Standing up, Short explains the man will be trapped in nightmares for 3 days. He gives Katrina a thumbs up, reassuring her the man is no longer a problem. Katrina's eyes show a mix of shock and dawning understanding. She gives a quiet nod of agreement as Burst grunts his own approval. The group continues into the village, a wide shot showing its quaint architecture. Short observes that the other villagers' attitudes are just as hostile. He wonders why they are calling them ogres and minions of the Demon Lord. The villagers shout insults, telling the monsters to get out of their town. One villager picks up a rock from the ground, preparing to throw it. He hurls the rock, screaming for the monster to die. Short calmly raises his hand, preparing to cast a defensive spell. The villager who threw the rock stares in disbelief as it stops mid-air. He unleashes his reflection magic Gakin, sending the rock back at its source. A text panel confirms the name of the powerful reflection spell. He chides them for throwing rocks, stating they just want to do their business. Another villager screams that they are worthless and should be killed by the hero. Short's expression becomes strained, the villager's words striking a nerve. His face contorts in anguish as he repeats their demand to be killed by him. He thinks despairingly about them wanting him to kill his kind new friends. A dark, swirling vision shows the weight of their demand on his mind. He clenches his fist, thinking he was just about to repay their kindness. A villager's panicked cry interrupts his thoughts as the roof catches fire. A massive, swirling vortex of dark energy gathers over the village rooftops. A woman in armor unleashes the spell Dead End Inferno, shocking Short's party. Short looks up thinking to himself that they must reflect on this. He dramatically declares that this situation is hell itself. His face contorts with shame, realizing he is burning with embarrassment. Katrina holds a tiny chibi-fied Short, telling him he's overreacting. She asks if this is what he was so worked up about, finding it excessive. The massive fireball dissipates over the village, revealing it was an illusion. Short explains to Burst that he is simply a person skilled with magic. He clarifies he conjured a 100-meter high-temperature fireball just now. He recounts that the village was once nearly destroyed by an army of the undead. He looks over at the villagers, who are now sitting in exhausted relief. He then reveals to a shocked Burst that the entire display was just an illusion. Short complains that despite saving them, the villagers' attitude is still hostile. Burst explains it's understandable, as some of his kind joined the Demon King. Short observes the villagers whispering and casting suspicious glances, finding it strange. With his arms crossed, he grimly wonders what's really going on here. He reflects that humans were far more numerous among the Demon Lord's forces. A flashback shows a human treacherously stabbing an ally in the back. He concludes that demons are different and humans are the truly treacherous ones. A sinister grin spreads across his face as he notes his companion's mental fortitude. His grin widens, questioning if they truly believe they are the only ones untainted. Short reflects on how human affairs are muddled by money and authority. With a smug grin, he decides his naive friends need a proper education. Arriving at the village, he notes it's a trading post but feels something is amiss. Katrina explains that the village has become a lodging town for traveling merchants. A sense of foreboding washes over Short as he fears his friends will be taken advantage of. He tries to hold Burst back, attempting to stop him from entering the trading post. Inside, Burst tells an old merchant he's there to trade his pelts and meat. Heaving massive bundles onto the counter, Burst asks how much cloth he can receive. A slick-looking man takes over the transaction, smoking with a shrewd expression. The merchant casually informs Burst his goods are worth only 3 sheets of cloth. Stunned, Burst protests that the offer is far too low, recalling a previous fairer trade. The merchant's pipe falls from his lips in a moment of surprise at the protest. His demeanor turns hostile as he shouts at Burst, refusing to deal with demi-humans. Burst looks crestfallen while Katrina whispers that the exchange is obviously unfair. Watching from behind, Short concludes his good-hearted friends are being exploited. A fire of righteous anger ignites within him as he stomps forward decisively. Bending over the counter, he declares his intention to deliver a punishment. He slams his hands on the counter, startling the merchant, Katrina, and Burst. The merchant is shocked as Short snaps his fingers right in his face. With a cool gaze, Short bluntly asks the merchant if this is a ripoff. The merchant explodes in anger, questioning what a young punk could know about business. Short's eyes glow faintly as he prepares to activate a special ability. He conjures a holographic display showing the official market rates from the capital. The merchant does a quick mental calculation, realizing the true value is much higher. Flustered, he insists the magical display can't be trusted, claiming this village has its own rules. Short slyly asks if this village's rates are somehow higher than the capital's. Sweating, the merchant doubles down, shouting that this village's rules are absolute. The confrontation has now drawn a crowd of curious and whispering villagers. Katrina looks at Short with a worried expression, calling his name softly. A mischievous grin spreads across Short's face as he says he's heard something fascinating. He declares his intention to test the claim by contacting the capital's trading post directly. The name of his remote connection magic is revealed: Call Center. The merchant's face pales in terror, stammering that such a thing is impossible. A magical signal travels to the Grand Central Trading Post in the capital. Inside, a man reviews a document, noting that the market rates are in chaos. Short cheerfully introduces the distinguished bearded man as Enzarts, the head of the trading post. The local merchant is utterly terrified, recognizing the powerful Enzarts by name. Short gets Enzarts' attention with a tap on the shoulder. He cheekily asks Enzarts if this is the call center, much to Enzarts' confusion. Enzarts furiously demands to know where the king and princess are, having a deep reason for asking. Short explains that he had no choice but to reveal his location for Katrina's sake. He casually adds that with a single word, a certain contract regarding the royals was nullified. Enzarts listens to this exchange with a thoughtful, unreadable expression. He seems to accept the explanation, though he finds the situation less than ideal. Short cheerfully agrees that it can't be helped, much to Enzarts' exasperation. Enzarts' expression becomes serious as he explains that for a merchant, a contract is absolute. Short, now acting as Enzarts' proxy, asks to know the current market price for cloth. He holds up the boar hide and meat, asking how many sheets they are worth. Enzarts, through the portal, notes the good size of the goods being offered. The valuable pelts and meat are presented for the official appraisal. Enzarts states that the processed meat's value is slightly reduced. Short declares the official market price, 39 sheets of cloth, stunning everyone. The local merchant breaks out in a cold sweat at the outrageous number. Katrina and Burst are overjoyed, realizing they can make many clothes with that much fabric. Burst accuses Short of pulling his own ripoff, but Short clarifies it's Enzarts' rate. The merchant argues that a small margin for error is acceptable in remote areas. A vein bulges on the merchant's forehead as he realizes this is blatant extortion. He points an accusing finger at Short, screaming that he's a ripoff artist. A cigar is lit, signaling a definitive shift in power. Enzarts, now relaxed, says he'll send the information later and report the fraud. Short gives a thumbs up as Enzarts vows to personally guide the terrified merchant. Enzarts then thanks Short for defeating a demon god official named Dalmot. The merchant collapses, stammering Dalmot's name in utter disbelief. Short waves a casual goodbye as the merchant continues to reel from the revelation. A horizontal panel transitions the scene as Short prepares his final reveal. He produces a framed portrait of a kindly, smiling, and rotund old woman. An inscription identifies her as Dalmot Taklandahar, the god of commerce. Short reveals that this revered figure was secretly a demon god official. He adds the final devastating truth: Dalmot was a true-born human. The merchant's world shatters, his beliefs crumbling before his eyes. Later, Short examines the portrait, sensing lingering magic used for control. He dismisses the magic's power as a fabrication, a simple lie. He recoils in shock, realizing a human could be a demon general. He cheerfully explains to a confused Katrina that 3 boars equal 39 sheets of cloth. He then bows to the merchant, asking for their cooperation, who can only agree. Walking through town, Short looks pleased with the outcome of their business. Burst follows behind, now carrying a massive bundle of cloth on his back. Short stretches, satisfied that a proper transaction was made and things will improve. Katrina approaches him, asking who he truly is, sensing his hidden power. A flashback shows her marveling at their new wealth of fabric. She shyly offers Short a small wooden pack frame as a gift. He looks at her with a gentle, understanding expression. A close-up shows Short's calm and accepting profile. Katrina's face flushes with a deep blush of gratitude and affection. Overwhelmed with emotion, she leaps into the air towards him. She presses her face to his shoulder, thanking him with tears in her eyes. Short is caught completely by surprise, letting out a yelp. He feels the immense pressure of her surprisingly powerful hug. He thinks to himself that she is incredibly strong for an ogre girl. His face is comically squished against her soft chest. He tells her it's a bit much, and she immediately apologizes, flustered. Burst, resting nearby, tells her not to worry about Short. Short tells Katrina that thanks to her, they could finally trade for so much cloth. Her face lights up with a warm, genuine smile, glad he was there. Short's expression turns serious and determined. He gently places a hand on her head, telling her the unfair treatment she endured was wrong. His gaze hardens as he explains that the problem lies with individuals, not entire races. He declares his intention to simplify the situation and purify the corrupt village. His companions look on, understanding the weight of his new mission. The scene settles on their rustic cabin, a symbol of the peaceful life they fight for. Short recalls Brust's warning about the severe persecution of demi-humans in other villages. He resolutely opens a cellar door, complaining about the troublesome situation he's facing. The ground erupts as he reflects that defeating the demon lord was just the beginning. On a nearby rooftop, the village elder coldly declares that hero Short will not be forgiven. A close-up shows her speech bubble, repeating her unforgiving threat against the hero. The grotesque monster Dalmot laughs maniacally, revealing he has proof from the Demon Lord. He transforms, revealing his true form as a demon general and evil god official. A close-up on his dialogue bubble reiterates his true identity and purpose. He explains that his system was born from the Demon Lord's own wisdom. Using recording magic, he preaches that humans should bow before those with power. He reveals his portraits amplified the villagers' desires to offer to the Demon Lord. Enraged villagers set the portraits on fire as the elder realizes they were deceived. Clutching her head, she laments that they were wrong, acknowledging humans can be wicked. She wonders how she could have forgotten such a simple and obvious truth. The last portrait burns to ashes, the flames consuming the cursed image. A text panel confirms the curse is lifted as the portrait is burned. Turning to Short, the elder expresses her wish to apologize to the ogre girl. Short observes that she is actually quite capable, despite being foolishly strong-willed. A massive golem is obliterated by Short's power, crying out his name in defeat. Short reacts with a weary, "Oh boy," as the elder stares in utter shock. The villagers whisper in awe, realizing the young man is the legendary hero. Performing a deep, formal bow, Short apologizes to the village for the trouble. He thinks to himself that this has become a very complicated situation. He rises, telling the villagers that his identity is a secret they must keep. With a puffed out face, he tells everyone to prepare themselves for what's next. He addresses the crowd, proclaiming that everyone makes mistakes. He declares they have the chance to start over, earning cheers from the villagers. Internally, however, Short smirks with a mischievous expression. He tells them it's good they didn't burn the village down, a veiled threat. A caption announces the morning after reconciling with the villagers. Short reflects that he has made peace and issued a gag order about his identity. He sits outside, sighing and looking weary from the previous day's events. He worries that if he stays, Princess Trappia will eventually find him. The elder approaches, calling for him to wait before he leaves. She thanks him for restoring peace and the village's positive atmosphere. She offers him a gift of gratitude, saying it's not much. She explains she raises birds as a hobby, gesturing to a nearby fowl. He eagerly asks if he can have them, and she agrees it's no problem. Back at the cabin, the scene is quiet before the reveal. Brust and Katrina stare in shock at a large basket filled with fresh eggs. Short stands proudly as Brust remarks it's been a long time since he's seen so many. He explains with a grin that he received them as a symbol of reconciliation. An image of the Horo bird is shown, a type of guinea fowl. A text box clarifies it's similar to a chicken on Earth. Katrina is stunned, whispering the word reconciliation in disbelief. Short declares that Katrina and Bruce will never have to suffer in that village again. Brust and Katrina are still processing the incredible turn of events. Katrina's face breaks into a tearful, blushing smile of pure gratitude. She exclaims how amazing it is and sincerely thanks Short for his actions. Short looks back at her with a gentle, happy expression. As a celebration, Katrina suggests they make some delicious egg dishes. Short enthusiastically agrees, asking if he can have a few eggs for later. Holding an egg, he declares a new plan, to hatch it and raise a bird. His eyes gleam with ambition, realizing this will ensure a continuous supply of eggs. He recalls that in his previous life, he had only ever raised one living thing. A memory surfaces of being on the Medica Fish Breeding Committee in elementary school. However, he remembers that he tragically managed to wipe out all the fish. The memory of his past failure fills him with doubt and a grimace. He shudders at the thought of his own incompetence. Under a spotlight, he questions his ability to raise anything successfully. He frantically reassures himself, declaring he is the hero and can do anything. Katrina notices his distress and asks him what's wrong. He quickly dismisses her concern, insisting there is no problem at all. With forced confidence, he announces he will now be an egg hatcher. Katrina looks on, utterly bewildered by his sudden change in profession. He tries to bolster his courage, thinking he has always faced challenges alone. Katrina suddenly grabs his arm, calling his name and offering her help. She earnestly tells him he doesn't have to do everything by himself. Her sincerity catches him completely off guard, his expression softening. A powerful realization strikes him, illustrated by a flash of lightning. He recalls his past, manic attempts to shoulder every burden alone. A different memory surfaces of Bruce offering to teach him about hatching eggs. Brust confidently explains that the first attempt is the most important. He offers to teach Short the proper technique to ensure success. In the present, Short thanks Katrina and Bruce, accepting their help. He gives a determined thumbs up, promising to rely on them. Katrina reflects on how much he has already helped improve their lives. Brust lets out a hearty laugh, the three of them united in their goal. A close-up shows Short's gentle, understanding smile. He thinks to himself that he now has reliable companions to depend on. His expression is one of peace and contentment. He understands that a slow life cannot be achieved alone. It is something that must be built together, with friends. A transitional panel shifts the focus to the next event. Katrina proudly presents a large, fluffy, perfectly cooked omelet. Short and Brust eagerly prepare to eat the magnificent meal. Short takes his first large, delicious bite of the omelet. His face melts into pure bliss as he savors the rich flavor. He muses on how the vibrant yellow of the eggs has brought new color to their meals. He hopes a stable supply will promise them such rich food forever. This thought reignites his determination to successfully hatch the egg. Filled with renewed purpose, he asks Katrina for an egg to hatch. She happily agrees, bringing him a small woven basket. A single egg is shown inside the basket. The camera pulls back, revealing the lone egg in the empty basket. Short looks at the single egg with a slight questioning smile. He turns to Katrina and asks where all the other eggs are. Still chewing, Katrina looks away with a guilty expression. The truth dawns on him. The delicious omelet was made from nearly every egg. He stares in horror, realizing the immense pressure resting on this one last egg. Short looks into a basket, surprised to find only one egg remaining. Panel. A text panel questions the dire consequences if he were to fail. Panel. A close-up shows Short's face contorted in horrified, stressed realization. Panel. A hand gently holds the single precious egg, emphasizing its importance. Panel. Another text panel highlights that everything depends on this one egg. Panel. Short holds the egg aloft, his face a mask of comedic pressure. Panel. Katrina looks up at the panicking Short with a shocked expression. Panel. A close-up on Katrina's face shows her apologizing with deep shame. Panel. Katrina explains she just wanted him to eat well after his hard work. Panels. Short holds up the egg, telling Katrina it's not her fault. Short's determined eye is shown as he declares, "One egg is enough." Panel. Short strikes a pose, vowing to use all his power as an egg hatcher. Panel. He vows to hatch the egg with his friend's help as they look on. Panel. A wide view of a clearing shows tilled earth, stumps, and logs. Panel. A close-up shows a hand carefully holding the single precious egg. Panel. Short sits on a log, holding the egg and pondering what is needed. Panel. A text box lists the requirements for hatching an egg successfully. Panel. Another text box explains he can't just stay home to warm the egg. Panel. A close-up shows Short's intense gaze fixed on the egg he holds. Panel. Short sits on a log holding the egg while Fulst chops wood nearby. A hand balances an egg, resolving to protect and warm it. Panel. Katrina leans over a surprised Short, asking what is wrong. Panel. Short explains his dilemma of warming the egg while working. Panel. Katrina has an idea, suggesting he should just use magic. Panel. Short has a shocking realization. He can create a new spell. Panel. Short excitedly asks a surprised Katrina to hold the egg. Panel. He begins casting, explaining the first component is warming magic. Panel. He adds a defensive barrier and gravity control to the spell. Panel. He combines the three magical elements into a single complex spell. Panel. A bright flash of magic erupts, forcing Katrina to shield her eyes. Short concentrates intensely, with steam rising from his head. A close-up of Short's eye, wide with a flash of inspiration. Panel. Short proudly presents a sphere of crackling, newly completed magic. Panel. He strikes a dramatic pose, announcing his new incubation spell. Short looks embarrassed, admitting his naming sense is a bit poor. Panel. Short's hand directs the new magic towards the egg Katrina holds. Panel. The egg floats in a black void, enveloped in a magical aura. The magically protected egg gently settles on top of Short's head. Panel. Short touches the egg, confirming the warming magic is working. Panel. Short draws his massive sword for a test, terrifying Katrina. Short looks up as he brings his massive sword down on his head. Panel. A text panel describes the sword's immense skull-crushing power. Panel. The flat of the sword strikes the egg with a loud metallic clang. Panel. Short pats the unharmed egg on his head after the powerful swing. Panel. A close-up shows the egg sparkling, completely undamaged by the blow. Panel just. Short looks proud, confirming there isn't a single scratch on the egg. Panel. Short cheers triumphantly as Katrina claps, happy that he succeeded. Panel. Short thanks Katrina enthusiastically, getting close to her flustered face. Panel. Katrina blushes, shyly insisting she did nothing as Short watches fondly. Panel. Short walks away, thinking about getting back to his field work. Katrina cheerfully waves goodbye, encouraging Short as he runs off to work. Panel. Fulst wipes his brow, telling Short he thought he was just warming the egg. Panel. Fulst looks with a puzzled expression at the egg sitting on Short's head. Panel. Short confidently asks Fulst what he means by the egg on his head. Panel. Short explains with a determined look that the egg is perfectly protected. Panel. Fulst looks on with a sweaty, skeptical expression, voicing his doubt. Panel. Fulst questions the egg's safety, but Short smirks back with absolute confidence. Panel. Short explains that his magic protecting the egg is a form of combat magic. Panel. Fulst observes the cleared land, asking if they are expanding their fields. Panel. Short enthusiastically explains his goal of growing wheat to make bread. Short asks a horned man if he can pull out a tree stump. Panel. Short yanks a stump from the ground while a horned man digs. Panel. Short thinks his heroic strength feels like something from a video game. Panel. The horned man looks on with a stunned and impressed expression. Panel. A bald man complains about Short's overwhelming power while he digs. Panel. Short cheerfully tells the other man his powerful method is faster. Panel. A diagram shows an ox failing to pull out a deeply rooted stump. Panel. The text explains that even an ox's strength is insufficient for the task. Panel. The horned man and bald man struggle together to pull a single root. Panel. A close-up shows the men's muscles bulging with extreme effort. The horned man strains, pulling a massive tree stump from the ground. Panel. He grits his teeth, reflecting on his own immense strength as an ogre. Short's hands grip the top of a large tree stump with force. Panel. Short smiles confidently, explaining his own method is based on his level. Panel. A large, unblinking eye is revealed, embedded within the wood of the stump. A giant insectoid monster bursts from the ground, surprising Short. Panel. The monster lunges at a shocked Short, its sharp proboscis aimed at his face. Panel. The monster's sharp point strikes the small white egg on Short's head. Panels. The monster recoils in a daze, its proboscis bent from the impact. Panel. Short holds the stunned monster as the horned man congratulates his catch. The orc man laughs, declaring the giant bug looks delicious. Panel. Short holds the stunned monster, horrified by the idea of eating it. A forest view with text lamenting the terrifying survival of the fittest reality. Panel. A close-up shows a hand gripping a cleaver, splitting a log. Panels. Short proudly sits on a chopping block, calling himself a craftsman. A large man approaches Short, questioning his wood chopping work. Panel. A close-up of Short's face, looking surprised and annoyed. Panel. The bearded man, Ensath, looks intensely as he speaks to Short. Panel. Ensath explains he came to the village after hearing rumors about Short. Panel. Ensath reveals he knows about Short's dealings with the demon army. A speech bubble explains the internal situation was terrible despite Short's influence. Panel. Ensath explains that since Short's arrival, he has been dealing with the demon army. Panel. Short looks thoughtful, commenting on the bold dealings with the demon army. Ensath reveals to Short that the subordinate he defeated, Dalmot, was human. Panel. Ensath looks angry, stating that it's the same everywhere and humans can't be trusted. Panel. Ensath reveals the shocking truth that the Demon Lord's greatest strategists are human. Panel. Short and Ensath sit together in a clearing, looking up at the sky. Panel. A wide shot of mountains as they agree the situation is difficult for them. Panel. Short waves goodbye, offering to send Ensath back with his high-speed magic. Panel. Ensath turns with a determined grin, stating the main topic is something else. A young man, Short, looks up with a curious and questioning expression. A large bearded man named Ensatsu lectures Short, stating he has a duty as his friend. Ensatsu smiles, announcing his intention to greet the person Short is indebted to. Short reacts with a shocked and angry expression, demanding to know what Ensatsu means. Ensatsu arrives in a forest clearing, interrupting Short and the Hornburst's work. Extending a hand, Ensatsu warmly thanks Burst for taking care of Short. Burst is impressed, questioning if this great man is truly friends with someone like Short. Internally, Burst reflects on his deep gratitude, believing he would have died without Short. The two men shake hands warmly, with Burst calling Ensatsu a great benefactor. Burst explains that since Short's arrival, his daughter has started smiling much more. Ensatsu's eyes light up with a teasing grin, wondering if Short has found a girl. The two older men share a hearty laugh, joking about Short's romantic life. Visibly annoyed, Short turns away, muttering about them saying unnecessary things. He internally complains about them getting excited at his own expense. The situation reminds him of the awkward discomfort of past family gatherings. A flashback shows him being pestered by relatives about his salary and relationships. The memory concludes, reinforcing the universally uncomfortable nature of family gatherings. Katrina's cheerful voice calls from a nearby house, announcing that dinner is ready. Ensatsu expresses his surprise at the presence of a muscular, bald man. Burst proudly pats Katrina's head, boasting that her cooking is better than the capital's. The scene is set at their rustic wooden house nestled among the trees. A large steaming bowl of stew is placed on the dinner table. Ensatsu takes his first spoonful, his expression one of anticipation. His eyes widen in delight as he proclaims the food is absolutely delicious. Short proudly agrees, giving a thumbs up and boasting about Katrina's amazing cooking. Across the table, Katrina blushes happily, pleased by the praise. She shyly explains that having more people to cook for is much more rewarding. With her eyes closed, Katrina feels a deep sense of purpose and happiness. Ensatsu watches Short with a thoughtful expression as they eat. He claps a hand on Short's shoulder, admitting he was surprised by his quiet life. Ensatsu confesses his envy, as his own life has only gotten busier since peace returned. Taking another bite, he closes his eyes, savoring a fleeting moment of tranquility. Burst quietly contemplates the peaceful atmosphere of their meal. With a sudden burst of energy, Burst suggests they should all go fishing. The idea is met with immediate enthusiasm from Ensatsu, Katrina, and Short. Katrina blushes, confidently stating that Short must be a great fisherman. For a brief moment, Short maintains a serene and confident smile. His confidence shatters as he sweats and admits his fishing skill is his absolute lowest. Ensatsu points and laughs heartily, confessing that he has never fished either. With a warm smile, Katrina offers to teach them both how to fish. Eagerly, Short grabs a fishing rod, declaring it's time to begin. He gives a cheeky, confident grin, ready for his very first lesson. Short turns to Katrina, asking her how one even starts fishing. She asks if he truly doesn't know the basics, and he admits he doesn't. Her expression brightens with a confident, knowing sparkle. Leaning in with a playful smile, she offers to teach him herself. Short sweats, suddenly wondering if Katrina is actually older than he is. Burst teases Katrina about her sisterly attitude, but she tells him to be quiet. Short playfully pats her head, but she insists she won't teach him now. Her resolve crumbles, and she formally asks him to please teach her instead. With a determined "all right," she takes charge of the lesson herself. She instructs him to first grip the rod and then cast the line. The bobber lands gently on the water's surface, creating perfect ripples. The two sit peacefully on rocks by the river, their fishing lines cast. The warm sun makes Short feel wonderfully relaxed and comfortable. He reflects that it's been a long time since he's had a proper day off. Deciding to nap, he casts a magic alarm on his line just in case. Just as he closes his eyes, he is violently yanked from his seat. A massive sound effect emphasizes the incredible force pulling on his line. A close-up shows Katrina's eye wide with shock and alarm. Short is thrown into the river with a huge, chaotic splash. Katrina screams his name in panic as he goes under the water. Soaked and sputtering, he admits he mistakenly thought he had a fish on the line. He suddenly realizes there is still something pulling on his line. A massive, dark silhouette of a fish thrashes powerfully under the water. Katrina exclaims at the incredible size of whatever they have hooked. Short's eyes widen with intense focus as he feels utterly powerless against it. He yells that he'll hoist the fish out, ignoring Katrina's warning not to pull so hard. A massive sound effect accompanies his Herculean, earth-shaking heave. Instead of a fish, a massive boulder is ripped from the riverbed. The boulder soars through the air and shatters against a cliff face. Katrina screams his name again, completely stunned by the absurd display of power. Ensatsu roars with laughter at the over-the-top reaction to a fish getting away. Enraged and humiliated, Short curses the fish as Katrina asks if he's alright. His face is a mask of suppressed rage and intense embarrassment. He turns away, his body trembling as he insists that he is perfectly calm. A dangerous, crackling, magical aura begins to emanate from him. He prepares to unleash a world-ending, freezing spell to get his revenge on the fish. Katrina tackles him to the ground, screaming for him to stop the magic. And Satsu and Burst watch the chaotic scene unfold from a safe distance. Calm is restored as Short's bobber lands gently on the water once more. He apologizes to Katrina for losing his cool and acting rashly. She smiles kindly, reassuring him that it's understandable for a beginner. Suddenly, his line is pulled taut again with incredible water-churning force. Katrina and another girl rush to help him, urging him to hold on. Katrina gets behind him, her hands over his on the rod to provide support. She remarks on how big this one feels, and a blushing Short agrees. The other girl advises him to watch the fish's movements and wait for an opening. The massive fish thrashes violently in the water, fighting with all its might. Seeing his chance, Short yells, "Now!" as they pull with all their might. A huge fish is triumphantly yanked from the water, splashing everywhere. Short holds his massive catch aloft as Katrina cheers his success. Burst and Ensatsu are impressed, suggesting they grill it and eat it right away. The group prepares the fish for cooking by the tranquil riverside. Burst asks if it's not a hassle to use magic to start a fire. Short uses his psychic ball magic to smash rocks together, creating sparks. He kneels proudly by the newly lit fire, his task complete. Katrina is amazed as the rocks themselves glow red hot, while Burst looks on. Burst remarks that Short is as absurd as ever, noting the magic's destructive potential. Short gives a thumbs up, explaining he's also using magic to cook the fish perfectly. By a tranquil river, Burst expertly prepares a freshly caught fish with his knife. Katrina apologizes for leaving the task to him, but he simply waves off her concern. He explains that the simple pleasure of fishing and eating helps him forget his troubles. Nearby, Ensatsu is glad he came, as Short admits that life has been difficult lately. Burst sighs, remarking how things have gotten much harder since a certain hero ran away. With his cheeks full of food, Short innocently wonders which hero he's talking about. Katrina smiles to herself, noting how well Short and Ensatsu seem to be getting along. Burst recounts his shared hardships with Ensatsu, and Short adds they defeated a demon named Dalmot. With great pride, Burst boasts that their impressive feat made them feel just like heroes. Short's pleasant expression instantly vanishes, replaced by a look of sharp annoyance. He confronts Burst, demanding to know what part of his story was meant to sound heroic. Flustered, Short realizes he hadn't noticed the struggles of everyday life during his own quest. Burst gravely observes that Short's perspective is far removed from that of an ordinary person. Ensatsu affectionately ruffles Short's hair, telling him this quiet country life is good for him. Touched by the kind gesture, Short silently acknowledges Ensatsu's gentle nature. He reflects that since returning from the battlefield, he feels like a simple soldier. Burst playfully teases that if a fish got away from him, he'd use magic to freeze half the world. Katrina announces the fish is ready, and Short joyfully exclaims it's his first ever catch. Steam rises from the perfectly cooked fish, ready to be enjoyed by the group. He takes a massive, eager bite, his eyes wide with anticipation. Overwhelmed by the delicious flavor, he closes his eyes in pure culinary bliss. Burst offers another piece, but then states he has no intention of getting close to him. He explains that for some reason, the princess seems to have taken a liking to Short. A voice from the bushes expresses surprise at finding Princess Trappia so far from home. A pair of sharp, intense eyes peer out from the foliage, watching the group with unknown intent. A leafy plant is shown, with text introducing a new chapter about their slow life. Katrina walks past Short, observing that he's raising potatoes, which he proudly confirms. He announces he'll water the plants, hoisting a massive water jug onto his head. As he walks, he declares that the thirsty potatoes will get plenty of water. His attention is suddenly caught by something unusual just ahead of him. A mysterious figure in a heavy cloak and hat sits on a bench outside their cabin. Short remarks that he has never seen this person before in their small community. The cloaked figure offers a polite greeting as Short approaches. Startled by the voice, Short stops and asks if they are a customer. The visitor reveals they came to the village after hearing a hero lived there. The word hero sends Short into a silent, sweaty panic. He thinks about how the villagers must have suddenly revealed his secret. The visitor calmly asks Hero Short to please calm down. Short blurts out that he is no longer a hero, but a simple potato farmer. The visitor begins to tell their own story of being an ostracized drunkard. A flashback shows them drinking heavily and being ignored in a tavern. They continue their tale of being cast out of their own village. After being ejected, they heard a story about the hero that piqued their interest. The villagers had apparently beaten them up for some reason. A chaotic scene shows the visitor being violently ejected from the tavern. Short is amazed his secret was kept, but the visitor says they came out of interest. The visitor presents a book they are holding. Short reads the title, A Record of Developing New Lands in the Yggdrasil Kingdom by Koraku. He is stunned, realizing the visitor is a published author. Short exclaims in joy that the author is a professional from another world. He recalls being an avid reader of ebooks back in his former life in Japan. He fantasizes about sending the author his own ideas for future plots and settings. Now relaxed, Short remarks on the pleasant, humid air of the region. The visitor decides it is time to remove their disguise. With a flourish, they begin to pull away their heavy cloak and hat. The author is revealed to be a well-dressed bipedal frog person. Katrina and Short are shocked, identifying him as a reptile person named Akeru. Akeru laughs, confirming that he is indeed a Kerujin, or frog person. Burst appears, greeting Akeru and chiding him for startling his daughter. Akeru explains he learned of their settlement through a demi-human information network. Burst elaborates that he and his daughter are pioneers on the frontier. Akeru is deeply impressed by their story, calling it wonderful. Burst's expression turns grim as he confesses they were exiled and had nowhere else to go. Short listens intently to their story of hardship and perseverance. He asks if they were exiled from a place called Brust. Burst confirms this, adding that the Demon Lord's army likely believes them to be dead. He recalls his former home, Fushinal Park, remembering its beauty in the morning light. Burst sadly explains that the country itself is now gone, burned to ash by a mysterious light. Short is confused by the mention of Fushinal Park and a mysterious light. Burst's face contorts with rage as the memories of his past flood back. He reveals the country's ruler sacrificed his people to the Demon Lord for an immortal body. A flashback shows the horrifying skeletal figure of the undead king. The king declared his intention to destroy the Hajimeno Kingdom with his new undead army. Burst recalls his shock and horror at this monstrous betrayal. The flashback shows the king unleashing a terrifying fire attack called Dead End Inferno. Short likens the situation to a zombie game where the undead would multiply endlessly. He muses that wiping out the entire country, while extreme, might have been necessary. Burst confirms that was the tragic fate of Fushinal Park. Akeru gently steers the conversation back to the present, remarking on Short's potatoes. Akeru addresses Short with a friendly but professional tone. He formally asks to be shown the fields. Short is surprised, wondering why he's so interested in their humble farm. Akeru adjusts his glasses with a scholarly air. He explains that for a potato farmer, the fields are their very life. He reveals he is also an expert on agriculture and loves it dearly. Short realizes this visitor could be a powerful ally and eagerly invites him to inspect his work. At the potato patch, Short proudly gestures to his crops. He admits they are still a work in progress, but declares them his pride and joy. Akeru, however, observes the plants with a critical eye, noting their limp, droopy leaves. He produces a book filled with his own detailed botanical illustrations, impressing Katrina. He diagnoses the plants as suffering from nutrient deficiency and overwatering. He scoops up a handful of soil to examine it more closely. After crushing the soil in his hand, he delivers his final grim verdict. The earth itself is barren, and he asks what kind of fertilizer Short is using. Short dumbfoundedly asks what fertilizer even is. Akeru is so shocked by this gap in knowledge that his tongue lolls out. His mouth hangs open in utter disbelief at Short's question. He explains that the land is not suitable and requires fertilizer to grow anything. Short becomes defensive, but Burst and Katrina rush to support him, insisting he can do anything. Short shouts defensively at Akeru, while Burst and Katrina proudly defend his skills. A young man, Short, reacts with a smile to the kind words of a frog-like man. The frog man, Koraku, declares proudly that with him here, everything will be fine. With a confident grin, Koraku proposes that they should make fertilizer. He promises that using it will make their potatoes grow fat and healthy. Fired up by this vision, Short agrees with a look of pure determination. Their new agricultural project begins amidst a vast, untamed landscape. The practical Short asks how one goes about creating this mysterious substance. Karaku explains that for a simple fertilizer, they can use human waste. With dawning realization, Short understands he means the byproducts of digestion. A horned man asks what to do with it. They are told to simply bury it. Karaku then lists other useful ingredients like ash and leftover fish parts. A horned woman, Katrina, excitedly confirms they have such things and runs off. Short voices his understanding that this is how fertilizer has always been made. Karaku assures them that with proper soil, they can aim for great things. He confidently states that they will be able to cultivate excellent wheat. The mention of a familiar place causes Short to react with surprise. A large man, Burst, expresses his desire for stew with bread. Short vigorously shakes Karaku's hand, entrusting the project to him. A simple wooden outhouse stands alone in a quiet clearing. Pointing with authority, Short identifies the structure as their current toilet. The group watches as Burst prepares to demonstrate their system. With immense strength, Burst lifts the entire outhouse off the ground. Karaku explains their ingenious mobile toilet system to a curious Short. Short realizes plants grew faster in the old spot, which Karaku confirms. However, Karaku warns that the raw material is harmful and unusable as is. He begins the strenuous, smelly work of fermentation as Short recoils. Karaku explains that the foul odor is normal and a hardship for all farmers. A profound realization hits Short. The slow life is a daily, arduous battle. Inspired by this harsh truth, he declares that he will help with the work. Later, Karaku presents the completed compost bin, explaining how it functions. He offers a piece of wisdom: proper fermentation will create a good aroma. Short gets excited at the prospect of the fertilizer having a pleasant smell. Karaku clarifies it will just be a different smell, much to Short's annoyance. Inside, Karaku observes that the powerful smell has begun to fade. Short walks up the stairs, wondering if the fermentation is going well. Katrina is suddenly overwhelmed by the terrible stench clinging to the two men. She forcefully drags them outside, yelling that they stink and need a bath. At the bath, Short offers to show off his skills, but Karaku prefers cold water. Short cleverly suggests a compromise, letting Karaku enter the cold water first. Karaku looks on, seemingly agreeing to the practical solution. He briefly wonders if the water bucket is just for a cold bath. In the tub, Karaku muses on the use of magic while Short explains his own. Clean and invigorated, Short declares himself an apprentice in fertilizer making. Karaku enthusiastically agrees to help him create a bountiful field together. During a peaceful meal, Short watches Karaku eat with impressive gusto. Karaku's long, prehensile tongue darts out to grab a piece of food. He lets out a satisfied, guttural sound after swallowing his bite. Short playfully asks his companion if he can even taste the food he eats. Karaku explains his people's keen taste and jokes about sharing with the bird. Katrina, blushing, shyly announces that she has finished making something. The men look at her, completely puzzled by her sudden declaration. She gently takes her father's hand, asking him to come see her work. A curious Short asks her what she has managed to create. With a proud flourish, she reveals a brand new set of clothes for Short. Short is amazed by the gift, and she urges him to try it on. Her father, Burst, is visibly moved by his daughter's thoughtful gesture. Karaku recalls seeing Katrina sewing diligently late into the previous night. Short models the new outfit, which is a perfect fit. He strikes several dynamic poses, exclaiming how wonderful the fit is. Katrina explains with a grin that she made it durable for work. To test this claim, Short immediately crouches down as Katrina watches. A button pops off with a loud rip, and he apologizes for the damage. Katrina stares in wide-eyed shock at the instant wardrobe malfunction. Short looks down at the broken button in his hand, confused. At that exact moment, a loud cracking sound echoes through the room. Burst shouts in alarm, wondering if the egg is hatching at this very moment. The entire group gathers around the cracking egg, their faces filled with anticipation. Katrina exclaims that the egg is moving, and Burst identifies the coming baby. Overwhelmed, Short panics and asks what he should do, but Karaku calms him. Karaku explains that the chick's entire future depends on this pivotal moment. Feeling the immense pressure, Short instinctively begins casting a strengthening spell. Katrina quickly grabs him from behind, telling him to stop. She gently explains that the baby is fighting its own battle to be born. Understanding her words, Short watches the egg continue to crack open. The eggshell finally breaks apart, pieces scattering on the floor. A small, fluffy creature begins to emerge from the broken shell. A downy chick with a large beak pokes its head out. It stumbles out of the shell with a soft, uncertain P.O. The entire group stares in a collective gasp of wide-eyed wonder. The chick nuzzles Short's cheek, and he is overwhelmed by its cuteness. A large hand gently reaches down to stroke the newborn creature. Exhausted from its ordeal, the chick falls asleep in the palm of a hand. Katrina laughs, explaining that the chick now thinks Short is its mother. The revelation hits Short like a ton of bricks as he realizes it has imprinted. He looks down at the sleeping bird as Katrina smiles warmly beside him. Katrina suggests they give the new family member a name. Cradling the chick, Short declares that it is their star of hope. He grandly names it Victory, but Katrina suggests the cuter Torimaru. His triumphant expression immediately deflates into confusion. Utterly embarrassed, he covers his face and begs her not to pity him. He looks down at the chick, now accepting its new name, Torimaru. Short explains his new plan to Karaku to raise and breed the birds. Karaku correctly identifies this new venture as poultry farming. Short asks if he knows about it. Karaku notes their droppings are good fertilizer. This gives Short the brilliant idea to use the birds to also increase their crops. Karaku, however, warns that wild animals will likely eat the birds. Filled with resolve, Short vows to build a safe place to raise them. Burst overhears their conversation and calmly offers to build the coop himself. He recalls his past experience as a carpenter, visualizing a sturdy coop design. Overjoyed, Short asks the former architect to build them an amazing coop. Brust and a well-dressed, frog-like creature named Karaku discuss their construction plans. The young hero, Short eagerly grabs an axe, ready to begin cutting down trees. As Short struggles with the axe, Brust calmly advises him to slow down. Brust explains the crucial importance of properly drying wood before using it for building. He elaborates that undried lumber warps and rots, a process that takes years in the forest. With a plan in mind, Brust suggests they go to the village to buy seasoned lumber. A view of the village's bell tower marks the start of their journey. Short happily announces their arrival at Jiro Village, glad Karaku is with them. Karaku assures Short he is fine and will use the time to plan the coop's layout. He confidently promises to devise the best possible configuration for their needs. Short instructs Brust and the horned woman Katrina to head to the trading post first. Running into a field, Short excitedly calls out to an old woman. He proudly shows her a basket, announcing that his bird, Trimmel, laid an egg. The woman warmly notes the bird's energy, playfully pointing out that it is a male. Short explains Trimmel ate the other eggs and asks for some for the bird's bride. The old woman happily agrees, saying the eggs will be a great help. At the trading post, a trader smoking a pipe tells Brust to show him his goods. The establishment's swinging doors set the scene for the tense negotiation to come. The trader's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes the Yu hero with them. He frantically looks around for the hero, while Brust requests an estimate for lumber. Regaining his composure, the trader agrees to appraise the pelts and meat first. He carefully examines the quality of the goods, making notes for his offer. With a smug expression, the trader presents the final appraisal document to Brust. Brust's face falls as he reads the shockingly low offer on the paper. His initial dismay quickly shifts to a look of pure, unadulterated anger. Katrina whispers that the price is low again, while Brust exclaims it's even worse than before. The trader sneers, explaining that high demand in the capital has driven up prices. He tells them to take their goods and leave if they don't like his offer. He dismisses their lumber request, questioning if they can even afford to build a house. From behind, Short's voice cuts in, explaining the offer is merely an advance payment. The trader is utterly dumbfounded by Short's sudden appearance and bold statement. He stammers that they are just honest folk, while Short tells him to stop flinching. The trader nervously offers to get the lumber immediately, suggesting payment can be settled later. A close-up on Brust's eyes reveals his simmering frustration with the unfair deal. He turns to Short, who observes the situation with a calm but firm expression. Short expresses his disgust at being underestimated in such a one-sided negotiation. He firmly states that an unfair transaction is unacceptable for one who normalizes trade. With authority, he demands to know the proper fair market price for their goods. The trader notes the high price, but Short counters that the quantity is also substantial. As the trader weakly suggests a loan, Short decisively snaps the document shut. He tells his companions to wait for him as he prepares to leave on an errand. In a blur of motion, Short dashes away from the village at an incredible speed. His destination is the grand, fortified capital city in the far distance. Inside the opulent royal high bank, he calmly requests to make a withdrawal. The trader, having followed him, scoffs that this is a bank for the wealthy. The teller recognizes Hiro-sama, and Short tells him to quietly process the withdrawal. While waiting, Short studies a chart of market prices with a thoughtful expression. He asks the trader if the chart is up to date, who confirms that it is. Short thoughtfully considers that the prices in the frontier might be slightly delayed. Elsewhere, a muscular figure shatters a stone pillar with a single powerful punch. The incredible force of the impact is shown in a dynamic close-up. The figure is revealed to be a powerful armored man in a lavish room. An attendant reports to Princess Trappia about a significant change in the hero's account. She confirms it's Short's account and orders an immediate investigation using teleportation magic. She bites her thumb, annoyed by Short's secretive and unexpected actions. Trappia muses on the large sum of money Short withdrew, wondering about his plans. A close-up on her eye reveals a cunning and calculating glint. She deduces that the main Ensatsu trading post is on break and must be located. She orders her attendant to find where Ensatsu is currently operating. A sly laugh escapes her as she realizes she has finally caught Short's trail. She looks forward to their meeting with a blush and a predatory smile. With a clench of her fist, she corrects herself with fierce determination. She declares that Short should be the one looking forward to meeting her. Short returns to the village, announcing his arrival and holding a heavy pouch. He drops the bag of money on the counter with a heavy, decisive thud. The trader picks up the pouch, shocked by its unexpected weight. He finds 23 gold plates inside, as Short asks if he can tell by the weight. Short confidently states that he does not engage in any unfair trades. The old woman offers the donkey and cart for free as a bonus, which Short loves. A cart stands ready, now fully loaded with the purchased lumber. Brust expresses his astonishment at the large sum of money, but Short brushes it off. Katrina lies on the lumber, marveling at how truly amazing Short is. She feels a wave of inadequacy, believing she has nothing to contribute to their efforts. Her expression is one of deep sadness and self-doubt. The trader proposes she bring handmade clothes next time, promising a high price. He praises the quality of Short's outfit, noting its durability for rugged work. Katrina is hesitant, explaining that the village lacks a skilled needleworker. The trader encourages her not to push herself, but she declares she will do it. Her expression is now filled with a newfound and unwavering determination. She timidly asks if clothes she makes would truly be good enough for him. The trader's expression softens as he listens to her with a thoughtful look. He admits that he had forgotten his own bag before making a gesture. He produces a fish-shaped sewing kit and begins to work with a tool. Katrina stares in wide-eyed, utter astonishment at the sight before her. He skillfully peels an onion-like object, revealing a perfect ball of fine thread. He apologizes for his past behavior, admitting the value of her hair is immeasurable. He assures her that with her skill, she can create high-quality goods. He guarantees her satisfaction, promising that no one will have any complaints. Katrina bows deeply, formally placing herself in his care for instruction. Later, Short walks through the village, a thoughtful look on his face. He notices Katrina's exceptionally good mood and cheerful demeanor. She exclaims how wonderful peace is, and he agrees with a happy smile. Katrina thanks the hero for defeating the demon lord, but Short corrects her, saying he's just a slayer. The scene shifts to a cosmic view of a crystalline asteroid hurtling through space. The menacing asteroid is shown up close, its surface jagged and dangerous. It impacts a celestial body in a blinding flash of light and energy. In a dark cavern, a disembodied voice feels the pulse of a new, true demon lord. The voice declares its hatred will descend upon 3,000 worlds as a new demon lord. A slick, embryonic figure begins to form from dark energy, heralding a new birth. In the Hajimeno Kingdom, Commander Gyros reviews a document for the Hero Recruitment Unit. A stern commander, Gyros, confronts a younger man, asking if he is a new recruit for an important mission. Suddenly, two disembodied eyeballs, seemingly the commander's, fall to the ground with a soft thud. The commander's face cracks under immense strain, his eyes narrowed with intense suspicion. His demeanor changes instantly to one of apologetic relief, realizing he's speaking to a superior officer. He waves goodbye, entrusting the man with the upcoming strategy meeting. Gyros watches the man walk away down the hall, his expression hardening with suspicion once more. The man, an infiltrator, smirks, thinking to himself how easily he has gained access to the hero unit. A dark vision reveals a massive demonic figure kneeling, vowing to be reborn as a new demon lord. The being's internal monologue reveals its sinister plan to first kill the hero, then eradicate humanity. The infiltrator walks on, musing on the foolishness of the humans who will be saved by their destroyer. The scene cuts to the hero, Short, who appears to be in the middle of some kind of work. With a grunt of effort, his hands firmly pull a large clump of weeds from the soil. He lets out a satisfied sigh, wiping sweat from his brow after the hard physical labor. Short reflects that since using the new fertilizer, the potato vines have grown vigorously. He then realizes with a jolt that the weeds have also grown just as lushly. Thanks to Kuroku's knowledge, farming has become his busy, full-time occupation. He clenches his fist, a determined look on his face as a new thought forms. He compares the hardship of farming to the life or death struggle against the Demon Lord's army. With a wide, determined grin, he declares that this kind of hard work is actually fun. A chirping sound from above catches his attention, and he looks up, puzzled. He spots a small bird, calling out to it as Torimaru, and asks if it understands him. Carrying the bird, he scolds it for escaping the coop that their friend Bruce had built for them. He wonders how the chick got out, discovering a scorched, perfectly round hole in the wooden wall. Cradling the bird, he affectionately tells it to hurry up and grow big and strong. A sudden, serious thought makes him pause, his expression changing to one of concern. He worries that if the chick grows up, he will no longer be considered its mother. Sitting on a log, he asks the agitated, chirping Torimaru what seems to be the matter. He notices the bird has been staring intently at an earthworm on the ground. A massive beam of energy erupts from the bird's beak, incinerating the worm in a flash. Short is thrown back by the display, his face a mask of pure, comical shock. He shouts in disbelief that Torimaru just shot a magic beam from its mouth. The bird chirps again, and Short complains that it has been a day of nothing but chirping. He panics as two more identical birds, Torimi and Torina, appear, chirping loudly. Looking at the flock, he muses that the world of Horoho birds is a tough one. Kuroku appears, logically pointing out that birds do not shoot beams from their mouths. He theorizes the egg might have been steeped in powerful magic for a long time. Short recalls the egg's latent power, but decides to keep this knowledge a secret. A bird pecks at something on the ground near a booted foot. He kneels down, his fear replaced by amusement at the strange, chirping creature. Holding the bird, he laughs and calls it a cute little thing. Sometime later, he observes that the chicks have grown up very quickly. The birds are shown firing their energy beams, demonstrating their unusual power. He excitedly wonders what kind of eggs this new species of Horoho bird will lay. Kuroku explains that his Hebi tribe also swallows eggs whole, just like his own. He notes that his people's digestive organs are weaker, so they swallow small stones as well. He demonstrates, explaining they use their stomach to crack the egg from the inside. Kuroku adds that they then spit out the empty shell, much to Short's disgust. A wide shot shows Kuroku speaking animatedly to his friend. He seems flustered as Short teasingly comments on his particular eating habits. Short playfully pats the blushing Kuroku on the head. Kuroku, noticing his friend's new head wrap, asks about it and compliments him. He explains he was helping Plust with construction and even helped with sumo wrestling. With a proud smile, Kuroku announces that their house is finally complete. A tranquil view shows a wide river flowing through a lush, forested area. The newly finished two-story wooden house stands on stilts at the river's edge. Inside, Short comments on the house's impressive and unusual shape. Kuroku explains that the living space is on the second floor. A close-up shows the rear of a large, muscular figure sitting on the balcony. Short's face contorts in shock as he recognizes the person. Looking up from below, he exclaims that it's the old man's rear. The tiger-striped beastman looks down with a wide grin, greeting Short. Kurlock sits inside, declaring the house isn't bad, though a bit small for him. He points to a hole in the floor, revealing he built it specifically for fishing. Short realizes this was the reason Kurlock had jumped into the river earlier. He and Kuroku crouch by the open trap door, looking down at the water. Outside, Kuroku offers Short a fishing rod, asking if he wants to fish. Short's face lights up with competitive zeal as he accepts the fishing challenge. Kurlock laughs, wondering if Katrina is okay with this sudden competition. Short boasts of his mental training, while a small creature says she'll fish too. He daydreams of catching a large fish while being embraced by Katrina. A close-up focuses on Katrina's impressive figure in his fantasy. A goofy, love-struck grin spreads across Short's face as he daydreams. The small creature tells him he needs to concentrate on the actual fishing. Kuralak stands outside the house, looking up at the sky. Short's frustration mounts as he fails to get a single bite. Kuraku theorizes that Short's killing intent might be scaring the fish. He explains that smaller fish are very sensitive to such auras. Short agrees, likening his ingrained combat instincts to those of a soldier. Kuraku continues, stating that in the water, Short is an absolute predator. Short realizes this is why hunting in the water comes so easily to him. A flashback shows him facing a massive sea serpent ready for battle. Kuraku reassures him that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. He advises that with time and practice, any skill can be mastered. Kuraku offers to teach him the mirror-like water fishing technique. Katrina's cheerful arrival with a basket of food interrupts the lesson. Short and Kuraku look on, annoyed that their concentration has been broken. The group gathers for a peaceful lunch by the river. Short is quiet, his gaze fixed thoughtfully on the house. Katrina, her cheeks full of food, looks over at him. She asks with concern if he has lost his appetite. He scratches his head, looking slightly embarrassed as he tries to respond. With renewed purpose, he declares they should decide on a name for this place. He points out that it's inconvenient to keep calling their growing settlement here. He excitedly suggests that as more people join, it could become a village. Katrina wonders if people will really come, while Kuralak seems anxious. Short thoughtfully considers the prospect of developing the land into a village. Kuroku agrees that more people will be needed to manage the land. Kuralak reflects that with the war over, many displaced people need a home. He smiles, thinking it would be wonderful to create a place that accepts them. Short is suddenly struck by a shocking thought, his hands flying to his face. Burst expresses his admiration for the young man, calling him a saintly figure. Observing the scene, Katrina teases Short for the look of deep respect he gives her father. With a determined expression, Short suggests they should all decide on a name for the village. Suddenly, Burst announces with great enthusiasm that he has an excellent idea for a name. Short is completely taken aback by Burst's sudden, loud declaration. Accusing Short of reading his mind, Burst decides his own idea is a bit much. A small, formally dressed creature observes the exchange with a sly, knowing smile. Short listens intently, his expression serious as a new suggestion is about to be made. The creature proposes naming their settlement Hero Village to honor the one who brought peace. Burst and Katrina immediately voice their enthusiastic approval of the new name. While Short argues the name is too direct, the creature insists its simplicity is a strength. Following this decision, Katrina declares that Short should be the village chief. Flustered, Short attempts to defer the leadership role to his master, Burst. Katrina notices his sudden mood shift and asks with concern what is wrong. A dark and terrible premonition of impending trouble suddenly washes over Short. In the distance, a formidable group of heavily armored soldiers appears on the horizon. A determined blonde warrior leads them, announcing they have finally found Short's house. Elsewhere, in a tavern, former party members Powers and Hiroina are having a discussion. Powers mockingly describes Short as a timid magic user who always vanishes when needed. Hiroina listens to his derogatory description with a deeply unsettled expression. With a confident laugh, Powers vows to capture Short himself if the others fail. The villagers are shocked as the soldiers are identified as being from the Hajimeno Kingdom. Their commander Gilos notes that Short's companions are unusually powerful for humans. Gilos realizes these must be Princess Trapia's personal forces, making Short nervous. He observes Short's restless glances, thinking he's behaving like a small, cornered animal. The commander recalls a past encounter, his voice calling out to the hero. A memory shows him aggressively grabbing Short while screaming about his slow life. The flashback continues, showing Short reacting with a pained grunt to the assault. A close-up captures the face of the defeated Gilos from that past confrontation. An older man had dismissed Gilos' defeat, claiming Short was merely a show-off. Short had stood over him, calmly confirming his identity as a slow-life person. With grim certainty, Gilos realizes that they have now become Short's enemy. He understands that the man Powers described is completely different from the real Short. Short's eyes reveal a cold and determined glint prepared for the coming fight. A flashback reveals Powers let Short go, knowing he would eventually need his help. Powers had always been aware of Short's habit of carefully observing the party's mood. The memory concludes with Short vanishing after a battle, leaving his former party behind. In the present, Gelos introduces his unit as the formidable Trappia Special Forces. Short is completely baffled by the sudden and aggressive mention of Princess Trappia. He inwardly acknowledges that the princess is the most frightening opponent he has ever faced. Gelos roars that they are acting in Princess Trappia's name, branding Short a fiend. Short is utterly bewildered, wondering what he could have possibly done to anger them. He turns to Katrina for answers, only to see her looking at him with suspicion. Katrina stands silently, her face shadowed and her expression deeply accusatory. With a menacing tone, she furiously demands to know if he has seduced another woman. Surrounded by soldiers, Short desperately tries to explain the deep misunderstanding to Katrina. He vehemently denies having any kind of romantic involvement with Princess Trappia. To emphasize his point, he loudly declares that he is completely single and unattached. With a flash of magic, he effortlessly turns an attacking soldier to solid stone. He dodges another soldier's blade with incredible and surprising agility. The petrified soldier begins to crumble into dust from the powerful magical effect. Unleashing a wave of energy, he shouts at Katrina that he is telling the absolute truth. The remaining soldiers are stunned, realizing he's far more than a convenient magic user. Short coolly states that he only uses magic because it is convenient for him. With a confident grin, he reveals that his true strength lies in physical combat. He dismissively offers to erase the defeated soldiers' memories before they leave. Suddenly, a dark and ominous energy erupts from a fallen soldier on the ground. Short senses an immense magical power, far greater than that of the Special Forces. A monstrous, skeletal creature materializes, ready to deal with him personally. The monster identifies him as a formidable opponent who has surpassed human limits. Short accepts the challenge, his expression hardening with determination. He clenches his fist, his mind already decided on a course of action. In a bizarre move, he sprints away, yelling at the remaining soldiers to go home. The monster unleashes a massive attack, sending Short flying through the air. Enraged by this apparent cowardice, the creature roars for him to be erased. The villagers and soldiers watch the incredible display of power with utter terror. Short decides to end the fight quickly to avoid revealing his full power to Katrina. The monster is surprised by his sudden and resolute change in demeanor. Announcing that the exchange is getting tedious, Short prepares to finish the fight. He unleashes a powerful and blindingly fast sword technique with a ridiculous name. He proudly explains it's one of 108 secret moves inspired by a manga. The monster is shocked by the sheer number of secret techniques he seems to possess. Believing its end is near, it begins a long monologue about a new demon lord. It speaks of its destiny to be reabsorbed into the planet's core after its defeat. Annoyed by the lengthy speech, Short winds up for another final attack. With a final thwack, he obliterates the monster, cutting its dramatic speech short. Gelos is left in awe, realizing Short defeated the powerful demon with a single blow. Short tells Gelos to stop calling him a slow-life person with such reverence. Gelos acknowledges that without his official position, he might have fought alongside Short. Kneeling, Short seems to recognize the patriotic fervor in Gelos' determined stance. Gelos demands to know why Short, with all his power, refused the princess's invitation. Short screams that he refused because he was scared of her intimidating personality. Gelos can't deny her scary nature, but insists that Short must come with them. He bows his head to the ground, begging Short to return with them. Short is completely taken aback by the commander's sudden and desperate plea. Gelos begs for him to return to the side of Princess Trappia. He explains that the kingdom will prosper with Short's help and guidance. A flashback shows the king lamenting the kingdom's dire economic situation. Short realizes the only way to break the deadlock is to utilize Trappia's unique talent. Gelos confesses that the princess has lost motivation and only thinks of capturing Short. He clings to Short's leg, weeping and pleading for him to return. Short yells in frustration, trying to pull his leg free from the desperate commander. Katrina watches with a worried expression, fearing he might actually leave with them. Short firmly declares that he is not going, surprising a shocked Gelos. He explains he has no desire to carry the heavy burden of an entire country. As Katrina watches, she thinks about making Short her own with a better offer. In a brilliant tactical move, Short suddenly orders the soldiers to surround him. Gelos commands his men to stop Short, creating the perfect distraction. Short dashes through the confused soldiers at an incredible, blinding speed. He thinks about his fastest sword draw, a technique that rivals a demon general's speed. A blonde woman lunges forward, grabbing a young man who is trying to turn away. The two are locked in a tense, face-to-face confrontation, their expressions equally fierce. With a triumphant shout, Princess Trappia declares that she has finally captured Short. Short reacts in utter shock, questioning how he was caught, while Trappia vows he won't escape. He expresses disbelief at her tenacity, marveling that the princess herself came to this remote frontier. Trappia desperately explains that her nation is on the very brink of total collapse. She insists that she needs his power and fame, demanding that he become hers. Nearby, an older man and a turtle-like creature observe with amusement at her joyful expression. A horned girl named Katrina forcefully intervenes, grabbing the princess's arm with surprising strength. The princess reacts with shock at Katrina's power, demanding to know who this person is. Katrina fiercely introduces herself and protectively declares that Short is her kid. Enraged, the princess retorts that it's already been decided Short will belong to her. The two women engage in a furious face-to-face shouting match, each denying the other's claim. Caught between them, Short's face is comically squished as he laments the terrible situation. He internally reflects on the surreal sight of two women fighting right in front of him. Katrina angrily tells the princess she can't just take Short away without her permission. The princess shouts back in frustration, her face a mask of pure fury. A large, muscular man with horns steps between them, warning that things will get bloody. He teases them both, pointing out that they must be very fond of Short. His comment hits its mark, leaving both women gasping and blushing with embarrassment. Three men observe the aftermath, their expressions ranging from smug satisfaction to quiet amusement. The horned man's companion compliments his clever strategy in diffusing the intense situation. The princess recalls how unreliable Short seemed when she first summoned him. She confesses she now believes he is worthy to be her husband, but Short rejects the notion. Katrina reacts with shock, questioning how and why Short was ever summoned. Panicked by the reveal, Short frantically yells for them to stop talking. He gets close to the princess, reminding her that hero matters are meant to be kept secret. Princess Trappia is stunned into silence by his sudden, firm action. He tells Katrina that the princess is powerful, but there are other suitable men for her. Unfazed, the princess insists that it absolutely has to be him. Her resolve hardens as she decides on a new course of action. She points at Katrina, challenging her to a contest to prove who is more worthy. The two rivals face off, agreeing to settle which of them is more suitable as his wife. Short despairs as the argument circles right back to where it started. A well-dressed, turtle-like man named Karaku offers a simple solution to their conflict. He proposes Princess Trappia stay with them to experience their frontier life. Short's eyes widen as he grasps Karaku's clever and insightful plan. The princess is intrigued by the idea, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. She accepts the challenge with a confident smirk, eager to prove her superiority. Karaku questions if the princess has any experience with a slow life, which she does not. Trappia boasts that with her immense self-confidence, she can accomplish anything. Short explains that a rival has joined their slow life with her special forces camped nearby. A title card announces the beginning of the princess's slow life experience, Day 1. A guttural scream of pure frustration echoes through the wilderness. The princess's face is a mask of agony, sweat pouring down as she faces the ordeal. She strains to lift a massive wooden bucket, complaining that it's impossibly heavy. Her guard commander Gillas bluntly tells her to carry it herself without complaining. Another man taunts her, saying Katrina could carry 3 at once, unlike an ogre. The rustic log cabin stands silently as she whimpers in exhaustion nearby. Leaning on the bucket, she mutters that she's ready to give up. Short approaches, noting how cruel it is to make a princess fetch water. She misinterprets his concern as pity for her, thinking he's worried. He suggests she go home, as the slow life is clearly impossible for her. Enraged by the insinuation, she dashes away with a newfound purpose. Her pride ignited, she pivots and launches herself into a powerful attack. She delivers a powerful high kick that connects squarely with his jaw. The impact sends Short flying backward, groaning in pain on the ground. Standing over him, she pants but declares a princess's body is well trained. She states that this is merely an extension of her martial arts training, which she will continue. A flashback shows a younger Trappia and Short in a different awkward encounter. Katrina appears in a doorway, telling Trappia not to play around. She explains that one must work diligently to survive in the countryside. Katrina effortlessly carries 4 buckets, demonstrating her horse-like strength to a shocked Trappia. Katrina explains that since they can't afford a horse, such labor is a necessity. Feeling the strain, Trappia asks Short if he would help her if the work is too hard. Her question is met with surprise, her eyes wide with the implication. Short flashes a sparkling, mischievous grin, teasingly asking if she needs his help. Her pride ignited again, she declares that if it's not raw strength, it will be an easy victory. Short leads her to her next task, explaining it's vital for their future hero's village. He explains that while there are only 4 human residents, there are also 4 other inhabitants. He announces feeding time, and several fluffy bird-like Tremaru emerge, chirping happily. He tells Trappia her new task is to care for the creatures, their village's greatest challenge. He mentions offhandedly that the birds have taken to calling him mother. Trappia kneels down, observing one of the small, adorable birds. She is instantly captivated by how cute and fluffy they are, wanting to hug one. Ignoring Short's warnings, she scoops one into her arms, asking who he thinks she is. Short smiles, agreeing that they are very cute and asking for her opinion. Her gentle expression shifts, a wicked and cunning glint appearing in her eyes. A single word hangs in the air, signaling her shift in strategy, therefore. Her gentle hold tightens as she reveals a malicious smile, having found his weakness. She issues her ultimatum. If he wants the bird back, he must become her husband. A different Tremar takes aim from behind, its eyes glowing with intent. Trappia suddenly yelps in pain, feeling a strange hot sensation on her rear. The Tremaru unleashes its attack, a beam of energy shooting towards her. Short identifies the attack as a Tremaru's magic beam, much to Trappia's shock. The beam strikes its target with a loud sound effect, echoing through the trees. A puff of smoke rises from a perfectly circular hole singed through her pants. Short sighs, deciding he has no choice but to help her with another job. Trappia looks on in confusion, wondering what other work there could be. He explains that the rigors of a slow life are more difficult than fighting the Demon King. He leads her deeper into a lush, overgrown forest. Trappia complains about the unpopular path he has chosen for them. Her complaint turns to shock as a foul scent hits her. She wonders if the job is actually just a pretext for something else with her. She insists she's not sweating, though she feels ill from the odor. The overwhelming stench causes her to nearly gag. Short cheerfully confirms the whole area stinks, while Trappia insists she can't handle it. Karaku appears with a shovel, announcing he's ready to mix the fertilizer. The word fertilizer horrifies Trappia, while Short cheekily confirms it. She stares at a compost bin, her face a mask of revulsion at the filthy task ahead. A woman screams in absolute horror, her face a mask of pure disgust. Short calmly explains that they ferment waste to grow potatoes, a concept she finds impossible. Asserting her royal status, she declares she cannot be made to stir such filth. The overwhelming stench causes their reptilian friend, Karaku, to gag in revulsion. He puffs his cheeks out, desperately trying to hold his breath against the foul odor. Short points out that Karaku has snapped from the sheer intensity of the smell. Karaku passionately explains that the smell signifies good fermentation, which revitalizes their fields. He points out that this humble work is what ultimately provides the food for their table. Though she understands the logic, the woman collapses, admitting it's biologically impossible for her. She laments that in this place, there seems to be nothing she is capable of doing. Defeated, she lets the shovel fall from her grasp onto the grassy ground. A sudden fire of resolve ignites, and she grabs the shovel, vowing not to be underestimated. Later, she sits exhausted and dirty, while Short and Karaku praise her excellent work. Feeling wronged by her state, she tearfully demands that Short take responsibility. He agrees, announcing that he has prepared a reward for her hard work. With a grand gesture, he triumphantly reveals the waiting outdoor bath. She is overjoyed as Short boasts about his skills as a bath craftsman. Jilo stands guard, complaining about having to protect her from any onlookers. Trappia stretches in the bath, feeling a deep exhaustion unlike her royal duties. She soaks contentedly in the warm water, enjoying the peaceful, quiet moment. Under the night sky, she admits to herself that this kind of life isn't so bad. Feeling completely relaxed, she lets out a sigh of pure, unadulterated bliss. She decides to stretch before she becomes too lethargic from the heat. Stepping out of the tub, she instinctively raises her arm to be dried. She calls out, asking for someone to wipe her down quickly. Short appears behind her with a towel, meekly offering to help. She lets out a piercing scream, violently shoving him in the face in a burst of shock. She furiously demands to know why he is there, as he was just burning something. He stammers that he wasn't looking, but she accuses him of seeing everything. Gelos and Burst scold Short for peeking, calling it the crime of a lecher. A few days later, Trapia has grown accustomed to the slow life. Gelos cheerfully serves her a bowl of stew from a pot over a campfire. He explains that thanks to Short's hunting, they have plenty of meat. Trapia looks miserable, muttering about having to eat meat every single day. Her frustration boils over as she screams her intense desire to eat fruit. She complains about the constant stew and demands to know if there is any bread. Gelos explains that the bread is hardtack for preservation and must be softened. She throws a tantrum demanding fluffy bread and fruit. Short dangles some dried food, calling her selfish for her luxurious demands. He explains that stew and bread are the ultimate slow life meal. Trapia leans forward, asking what they usually eat in this place. Short reveals that their main staple is potatoes. He explains that potatoes are scarce in the forest and their own fields aren't ready. He continues, stating that if they had more meat, they would have more options. A sly grin appears as he realizes this primitive hunter-gatherer lifestyle is quite strong. He tempts her with the promise of returning to a life of luxury in the capital. Katrina, watching nearby, wonders if they are talking about fruit. Her expression reveals a clear desire to eat some herself. Burst appears, asking if someone was just talking about fruit. He announces his return from a trading trip to the village. Short explains that someone has to act as his substitute while he is away. Burst says he brought something good from the village, noting a sweet scent in the air. He holds up a large, pale, oblong fruit for them to see. Katrina's eyes light up with joy as she recognizes the okayashi. Trapia finds its appearance rather plain and unappealing. Katrina explains it's like a yashi tree, but filled with sweet flesh instead of juice. She eagerly asks Short if they can eat it right away, and he cheers in agreement. Burst begins slicing the fruit to share with everyone, noting Short's high spirits. He mentions that Katrina loves sweet things and asks if Burst does as well. Burst admits his preference is for sake, which is a rare, expensive luxury here. A man in a helmet, Pluto, remarks that Burst seems to have a secret plan. Pluto notes the cut log, anticipating the fun that will come later. A loud chopping sound rings out as Short looks on in surprise. Katrina brings out a platter of sliced fruit, apologizing for the wait. She admits the axe got stuck, but Short compliments her skillful use of it. Trapia observes that the fruit's flesh is rather small. She asks what's so special about it, annoyed by all the fuss. Katrina ignores her, suggesting they all eat together. She takes a bite with a satisfying crunch. Her eyes sparkle with delight as she exclaims how sweet and juicy it is. Trapia is visibly moved by the delicious sweetness. Short agrees that by this world's standards, it has a refined sweetness. He notes that even with its low sugar content, it makes Katrina's mood soar. He observes that Trapia seems completely satisfied with the simple treat. Tears of joy stream down her face as she continues to eat the fruit. Short thinks it's pathetic, but can't bring himself to stop her. He claps his hands, announcing it's time to resume their work. Back at the field, Krolok and his men are hard at work clearing the land. Krolok reflects on how the pastoral labor soothes his heart. He approaches Short and Karaku, asking if they have something to discuss. He explains that their land reclamation has progressed, and he wants to help more. Short and Karaku listen with keen interest. Karaku proposes their next task, potato digging. Short asks if they can harvest the potatoes now, and Karaku confirms it is time. Burst and Short share a look of thrilled agreement. A foreman calls for everyone to assemble for the harvest. He announces it's a fine day for digging and tells them to hurry. Short stares in astonishment at the sheer volume of potatoes. A veritable avalanche of produce tumbles forth from the rich soil. Katrina is overjoyed, declaring they've done it and will feast tonight. Kuraku, in a butler's uniform, remarks on their homemade potatoes. He pops a piece of soil into his mouth to test its quality. He confirms the soil is excellent, resulting in a fine finish. Trapia is amazed, asking how their fertilizer could double the yield. Kuraku compliments her sharp instincts for fertilizer making. Trapia muses that the fields they started together have borne such fruit. Karaku promises that by her next visit, the fertilizer will be even better. Trapia is impressed, realizing they have created something truly wonderful. She holds a potato, a look of profound understanding on her face. She declares with passion that her interest lies in politics. Princess Trappia outlines her political strategy with intense focused determination. A small man praises her sharp instincts, causing her to become slightly flustered. Feeling the weight of her new duties, she clutches her head in distress. Her attention is then captured by a potato held by the hero, Short. Holding the potato herself, she declares with newfound confidence that it's not bad. Inspired, Short rallies the villagers, calling for everyone to help dig potatoes. The entire community works together, joyfully harvesting the bountiful crop. Under a full moon, Katrina proudly presents a large, steaming bowl of potatoes. The group lets out a massive cheer, excited for their celebratory feast. Trappia examines a potato, noting it seems to be more than just steamed. She observes that the skin is unusually thin and doesn't look tough. Taking a bite, her eyes fly open in shock at the incredible flavor. Krolok marvels at the taste, while Short notes the potato's soft skin. Pluto explains it's a rare early harvest variety not widely available. Burst offers Krolok a drink, suggesting it pairs perfectly with the potatoes. Krolok's eyes widen in surprise as he identifies the beverage as sake. Burst proudly explains it's okayashi sake, made from fermented tree sap. Katrina is amazed, while Short finds its sweet Amazaki-like flavor pleasant. The process of harvesting sap from the tree's flowers is recalled by Trappia. She takes a thoughtful sip, her expression pensive and contemplative. A memory of an expensive, rare wine from the royal court comes to her. The unique aroma confirms her suspicion about the drink's origins. This sparks an idea for Short to cultivate the trees as a village specialty. Burst considers the idea, seeing the potential for trade and prosperity. A fire of purpose ignites within him as he fully embraces the plan. Short cheers, happy that Burst has found a new goal in life. Burst tells Short that this newfound purpose is all thanks to him. With a proud grin, he claps a hand on Short's shoulder. Burst then suggests Short should take Katrina and live with them permanently. Short panics, realizing he's being propositioned by his potential father-in-law. He understands Burst's friendly overtures were part of a larger recruitment scheme. An off-panel thought dismisses this as a foolish and unlikely scenario. Short watches with a cheeky grin as Trappia enjoys her drink. Trappia declares she has no intention of staying in this remote backwater forever. Short points out the irony of her statement, given her own origins. She issues an ultimatum, threatening to stay if he orders her to leave. Katrina vows she won't let Trappia take Short back with her. Burst and Krolok erupt in hearty laughter at the chaotic display. Trappia points at the group, vowing they will not forget her. With the visitors gone, Short reflects on the enjoyable, if noisy, experience. He asks about sake brewing, but Krolok's sensitive skin prevents him from it. Pluto explains his own expertise is limited to farming and fertilizer. An older villager suggests finding and transplanting a wild tree. Pluto cautions that this process would take 5 long years to bear fruit. A few days later, a delivery unexpectedly arrives for Short. A letter from Trappia designates the village as a national liquor site. Short marvels at her power, realizing she sent an impossible-to-get tree. That night, a bright full moon hangs over the quiet house. Inside, Katrina is at the stove, the sound of sizzling filling the air. Short sits at the table, observing the peaceful, silent atmosphere. For a moment, his eyes close in quiet contemplation. A sudden, shocking realization hits him. He and Katrina are alone tonight. He remembers that Burst and Pluto have gone to a neighboring town. They won't return until tomorrow, having gone to learn about brewing. His mind races with possibilities until Katrina calls him for dinner. She presents a magnificent sizzling pork steak topped with garlic. He digs in with gusto, exclaiming how luxurious and energizing the meal is. Katrina smiles, explaining she made it on impulse despite Burst being away. Short thinks he'll be too full of energy to sleep tonight. He looks up, mouth full, as Katrina begins to speak seriously. Katrina chats happily about her day and her future plans. Short agrees with her idea, holding his fork with a smile. He mentions their livestock are getting bigger and need more feed. A seed of suspicion grows in his mind. She seems unusually talkative. He notices her strange demeanor and wonders what's on her mind. Her expression is tense, her lips pressed into a thin, determined line. Short explodes, demanding to know how far things went with Trappia. Katrina admits her long talk was just a lead-in to that topic. She looks at him with a serious and determined expression. Short looks back, a bead of sweat on his brow, looking grim. He begins to make a serious declaration about him and Trappia. Katrina listens intently, a faint blush on her cheek. He shouts that they have absolutely no relationship whatsoever. Katrina complains he's overreacting since they haven't even held hands. She points out that marrying a princess would mean a difficult life for him. He agrees, covering his face in horror at the thought of high society. His anxiety melts into laughter as he declares his slow life is the best. He throws his arms wide, overcome with joy and relief. Katrina's expression softens into one of gentle empathy. She smiles warmly, understanding the pain he's been through. With a soft voice, she tells him he must have suffered a lot. Her perception stuns him into silence, his eye wide with shock. He covers his mouth, flustered that she saw his inner turmoil. She smiles brightly, teasing that his pained face is now a comical one. He lets out a sigh, the tension finally leaving him. He clutches his head, admitting he can't explain the details. He then declares that if he were to marry, Katrina would be a good choice. His own words catch him by complete surprise. Katrina's jaw drops in utter speechless disbelief. Short mirrors her expression, shocked at his own declaration. Katrina lets out a flustered scream, completely overwhelmed by his words. She lunges across the table, frantically trying to backpedal the conversation. She collapses onto the floor, moaning that she feels like she's going to die. Calmly, Short suggests they just finish their meal for now. The house settles into a quiet post-dinner atmosphere. They both formally thank each other for the meal. Katrina offers to do the dishes, looking a bit shy. A new resolve settles over Short as he feels a major step has been taken. He announces he will go and prepare the bath. Outside, he stands resolute, believing all obstacles are now gone. Kneeling by a pile of kindling, Short resolves to begin his relationship properly. A sudden splash from a nearby wooden tub startles him, his eyes widening. He covers his mouth in shock, wondering if this means they'll bathe together. Peeking over the tub's edge, he notes with a grin it's too small for two. In the water, Katrina sputters, completely taken aback by his forward suggestion. Short himself looks just as surprised by his own sudden boldness. She questions if he seriously intends for them to get into the bath together. In a sudden panic, Short realizes it's Katrina's turn to use the bath. A thermometer-like object floats comically beside Katrina's flustered face. She grumbles that the tub is definitely too cramped for both of them. Splashing playfully, she explains how her massive father makes the water overflow. Short sighs, finally understanding why he always has to bathe last. Under the full moon, he tells her she can be his substitute for now. Later, soaking alone in the tub, he lets out a long, weary sigh. After his bath, he suggests they should call it a night, looking tired. They wish each other good night before heading to their separate rooms. Pausing outside his door, Short puts a hand to his head, deep in thought. Lingering in the hall, he wonders if this is the moment to make a move. Alone, he nervously debates what to do, especially since Bruce is gone. His gaze falls upon the wooden nameplate hanging on Katrina's door. Looking between his door and hers, a shocking realization hits him. His eyes fly open in panic as he grasps the new situation. Driven by a hero's instinct, he decides this is a critical moment for action. He stands before her door, his fists clenched, ready to knock. Katrina peeks out, flustered, asking him what is wrong. He feels awkward, knowing he's weak when asked direct questions. He blurts out that he simply came to see her face, a clumsy excuse. She looks down shyly, a soft sound of surprise escaping her lips. The door swings open fully, leaving him completely stunned. He whispers her name, utterly captivated by the sight before him. A nervous Short asks if she always wears such a revealing outfit. She explains it's her first time wearing it and asks how she looks. He declares it's not revealing at all, but incredibly cute and suits her perfectly. Tears of happiness well in her eyes at his heartfelt compliment. She turns with a happy hehehe, showing off the simple garment. He bows formally, announcing that he has a request for her. She sits on the bed, ready to listen as he looks on nervously. Hiding her face with a pillow, she asks why he has come to her room. His gaze is intense, his mind racing to find the right words. She notes that he's speaking, but his voice is too quiet to hear. He clenches his fist in frustration, unable to articulate his feelings. He calls out her name, his voice filled with newfound determination. She smiles brightly, stating she has her father's permission to be his son-in-law. Giggling, she covers her mouth, teasing that he's getting ahead of himself. She adds with confidence that he will get along well with her father. He agrees, stating he knows he's good at getting along with her father. His hand reaches out and gently takes hold of her. He pulls her into a firm, loving embrace, holding her tightly. His expression hardens with resolve, a new plan forming in his mind. He thinks that this situation must not be left to chance or misinterpretation. He declares he will use a demon-class technique that cannot be faked. He explains that he has completely isolated their house from the world. In his arms, she notes that he just used some incredible magic. He leans in closer, a playful smirk on his face, promising to be gentle. He softly addresses her as Hiro-sama, his tone teasing. She protests that he's being too serious and that it's not fair. He wonders what specifically this entails, perhaps something for the morning. The next morning, a rooster crows to signal the dawn. Short sits up in bed, shirtless and looking content. He muses that it's already morning, or perhaps even noon. He glances over at the sleeping form of Katrina beside him. Acknowledging how tiring the night was, he decides to let her rest. He thinks there's something he's been meaning to ask the hero. The chirping of birds reminds him of his morning chores. Suddenly remembering, he dashes out of the room naked to feed the Tramaru. He decides to give them an extra special meal today. In the hall, he is intercepted by the newly returned Brust and Karaku. He freezes mid-stride, caught in an incredibly awkward situation. His face is a mask of pure shock and embarrassment. Brust stares down at him, his own face a picture of utter disbelief. Short flashes a nervous thumbs up, greeting Brust as father-in-law. Brust's hand is frozen in midair, as if turned to stone. The frog-like Karaku observes that Short's friendship transcends bloodlust. The subsequent family meeting begins with a tense, silent stare down. Short watches Brust, his own expression a mixture of nervousness and determination. Katrina serves them food, caught in the middle of the silent conflict. Brust finally breaks the silence, his voice low and serious. The question he asks sends both Short and Katrina into a flustered panic. With a mischievous glint, Brust asks when they plan on having kids. An embarrassed Katrina playfully hits her father, who laughs heartily. Brust tells Short he's impressed that he took his chance. Short is visibly shocked by Brust's next revelation. Brust reveals he knew Katrina was the hero, which Short confirms. Brust recounts the dire situation during the war against the Demon Lord. Short looks at him, puzzled by his father-in-law's stunned expression. Brust stammers in disbelief, asking if Short was the hero all along. Short is equally confused, asking if Brust didn't know. Katrina explains to Short that her father is just naturally dense. Curious, Short turns to Katrina and asks when she figured it out. She replies with a gentle smile that she knew from the very beginning. Short is completely floored by her answer. A flashback shows a young, cloaked Katrina in a refugee camp during the war. The heroes' party, led by Short, arrives at their camp. Short recalls the event, placing it about a year in the past. Brust explains that Short's companions were evacuating civilians from the besieged Fushinal Park. Meanwhile, the hero himself prepared to advance toward the park alone. A small, cloaked Katrina watched his grim and determined face. She recalls how scary and unapproachable he seemed back then. He radiated an aura that forbade anyone from even speaking to him. But the next time she saw him, his expression had softened completely. Short recalls how an ogre child's words once brought him immense peace. Katrina smiles knowingly, sensing he is remembering their first encounter. A memory shows a younger Katrina asking if it's dangerous for him to be alone. The stunning realization of her identity hits Short with overwhelming, wide-eyed shock. He exclaims in disbelief, asking if she was truly the child from that time. Beaming, she confirms it was her, leaving him marveling at her incredible growth. She happily states it was about a year ago, which comically floors him. He stammers about her growth spurt as her father Burst laughs heartily. Burst reassures him she has grown into a proper adult despite past hardships. Katrina stretches, remarking on how quickly her posture improved in an instant. Burst observes that Short's face now looks much more relaxed and at ease. Short reflects that back then, he was not as strong and was heavily burdened. He recalls standing before a city, fearing the zombified country and its king. His companions had urged him to go on alone while they evacuated refugees. He steeled himself, believing it was his solitary duty as the hero. A small hand is shown tugging firmly on the edge of his cloak. The young Katrina appears, asking if it's dangerous for him to be alone. Her unexpected bravery and concern leave him utterly speechless and surprised. The small girl insists on going with him, so he thanks her gently. Katrina explains that after they met again, being with him was fun. She realized he was the hero, but found joy in his company anyway. Before she knew it, she found herself chasing after him with affection. Short blushes, finally understanding the true beginning of their deep connection. Karaku cheekily concludes that this is how they finally crossed the line. His comment flusters Katrina, who covers her face in embarrassment. Burst claps Short on the back, overjoyed that he chose to live with them. Short declares his happiness, earning a playful, embarrassed punch from Katrina. Burst's expression turns thoughtful as he declares they must expand the village. Short agrees, proudly stating a married couple now lives in the hero's village. With a determined glint, he clears his throat, ready to share his vision. He passionately declares his ambition to create a large Okayashi sake orchard. Burst volunteers to build a brewery, while Karaku offers his expertise. Katrina points out their growing livestock means they are severely short-handed. Karaku suggests they must recruit families willing to settle and clear the land. A fire ignites in Short's eyes as he agrees to take on the challenge. A man in a town square is shown leaning on a staff, resting. The man lets out a wide yawn, completely unaware of what's coming. Short suddenly appears, sending the man flying with an accidental kick. He announces their quick arrival and his plan to recruit villagers here. A voice from a rooftop screams his name, signaling his arrival is known. Panic erupts as a man ushers his family inside, calling for help. The townspeople part before them, bowing in a mixture of fear and awe. Short asks in annoyance if he's a catastrophe, as Katrina stifles a laugh. A man pleads with him to stop, saying he's already saved the world. The crowd echoes this sentiment, urging the hero to finally rest. Katrina playfully notes his power is terrifying as he grows more irritated. An elderly merchant approaches, warmly asking what grand plan the hero has today. Short's mood brightens as he enthusiastically explains his plan to recruit villagers. The merchant is intrigued by the concept of the hero's village. His eyes widen as he hears the name of the village again. Short details his vision for specialty products and a tourism industry. The merchant, seeing the potential, offers his full and enthusiastic cooperation. They brainstorm ideas for recruitment posters, with Short volunteering to write them. The merchant turns to Katrina, asking for her input on the plan. He suggests creating clothes with a village logo to sell as specialty items. Short notes the merchant's unchanging entrepreneurial spirit and wants more clothing types. He sees this as the next great stage of his desired slow life. His peaceful planning is interrupted by a rider approaching at great speed. A royal knight, Gilos, gallops in, desperately shouting for the hero. Gilos leaps from his horse, frantic and unable to speak clearly. He finally delivers the terrible news of an impending invasion. In a prison cell, Princess Trapia tells a ninja a coup is imminent. Gilos kneels, begging for Short's help, who is torn about his slow life. Katrina is shocked, as the merchant grimly confirms it's a war between humans. The merchant explains that trade has been completely cut off by their enemies. He fears their thriving village will wither away from the isolation. Katrina's eyes fill with tears at the thought of their community's demise. The merchant begs Short to appeal to the princess, but he refuses. He turns to Katrina, who admits she knows little about war. Katrina's distress boils over, asking if he understands how many will suffer. Her emotional plea leaves Short speechless and deeply affected. He looks down, a single bead of sweat on his brow. With a sigh of resignation, he concedes that she is right. He clenches his fist, a soft light sparkling around it. Katrina passionately declares that she wants him to stop the war. He agrees to see Princess Trapia before recruiting any new villagers. Katrina, with tearful determination, insists she will not let him go alone. Her eyes burn with resolve as she announces she is going with him. A caption declares that the hero Short must now enter the war. They arrive at the capital, a massive fortified castle before them. Guards complain about raids and supply shortages as Short suddenly appears. He declares that only a hero could have broken through the turmoil. Inside, Katrina marvels at her first visit to the capital. She wistfully suggests they could sightsee together once things have calmed down. Short's grim expression catches her attention, and she asks what's wrong. A crowd of desperate citizens rushes towards them, shouting for the hero. They swarm him, pleading for help and blaming him for the war. He observes the desolate streets, a stark contrast to his honeymoon dreams. Katrina notes how everyone is depending on him, seeing the empty city. A bizarre fantasy of a perfect romantic life culminating in a baby flashes through his mind. The horrifying vision shocks him back to reality, realizing this cannot happen. A fire ignites within him as he declares he will restore peace. Katrina cheers him on, delighted that he's finally got the right attitude. He agrees with a confident grin, now filled with motivation. A familiar voice calls his name as Princess Trapia arrives. He turns with a confident grin, announcing he has come to help her. Trappia states that she knew he would come to their aid. She orders him to hurry to the War Council headquarters immediately. Another voice calls his name, remarking that it's been a long time. His former party member, the monk Heroina, appears with a playful greeting. A flustered Short is surprised to see a woman from his past, Heroina. The menacing presence of an armored warrior behind her adds to his unease. Getting close, Heroina teases him, saying she has become more of an adult. She playfully challenges him to guess what has changed, making him sweat nervously. Short's comment about his unfulfilling life seems to throw Heroina off balance. He internally struggles to compose himself, focusing on his new slow life. Turning to Katrina, he introduces Heroina as a former companion and priestess. Katrina offers only a silent, unimpressed stare in response. Elsewhere, Heroina dismissively tells another woman that they should just leave Short alone. She confidently asserts that he can surely handle things by himself. Katrina confronts Heroina, pointedly asking what the former companion wants with Short. Asserting her prior claim, Heroina grabs Katrina's arm, stating her bond is older. She then turns to Short, seeking confirmation of their special connection. An exasperated Short asks if she is trying to start yet another war. The tense situation makes him suddenly ask about their other companion, Powers. The eye patch wearing Trappia coldly reveals she had Powers thrown into the dungeon. She recounts how Powers had spread malicious rumors, damaging Short's reputation. Heroina declares with fury that she was completely deceived by Powers. Her face contorts in a pained grimace as she recalls the betrayal. Katrina tells Heroina she is getting carried away and demands to know who she is. Heroina smugly states she isn't some random woman, emphasizing her deep bond with Short. Her confident words seem to wound Katrina, whose expression becomes sad. In a decisive move, Katrina walks past Short, pulling him protectively behind her. She expertly gags the stunned Heroina and boldly declares herself to be Short's wife. Her audacious proclamation leaves both Heroina and Trappia speechless with shock. Short claps his hands together, exclaiming "Bravo!" at the dramatic turn of events. He silently observes that Katrina has become significantly stronger than before. He rallies the group, announcing they must go to the strategy department to stop the war. The scene shifts to an opulent meeting room with a grand, ornate fireplace. Upon entering, the women playfully pull a reluctant Short in different directions. A large, bearded man greets them, asking if a man named Ensatsu is present. He then gestures off-panel, mentioning that guy is also here. A woman with glasses suddenly appears, startling Short as he recognizes her as Brain. She cheerfully introduces herself as the former party's sage, now working as a librarian. Short remarks on what a surprisingly plain job it is for a former hero. Brain laughs, explaining she lost a power struggle and isn't skilled at politics. She admits to barely scraping by on her meager salary, which shocks Short. Heroina expresses her concern, knowing Brain is one of the country's most powerful mages. Katrina enthusiastically invites Brain to come live in the village Short created. Short agrees, declaring a hero who saved the world shouldn't be working for cheap. Their generous offer visibly touches Brain, who looks on with gratitude. She considers going, mentioning she's being harassed by a former party faction, which panics Short. He turns to Katrina, asking if it's truly alright to bring Brain as a new resident. A sudden realization seems to strike Katrina. In a quiet moment, Heroina thanks Brain for speaking with Short. She confesses her fear that with her current power, she would have been a burden. Katrina eagerly tries to recruit Heroina to the village as well. She then fiercely hugs Short, declaring she will absolutely never let him go. The group is seated at a long table as the strategy meeting finally begins. Heroina leans forward, preparing to ask Short a very direct question. She asks him if he has always been in love with her. A panicked Short tells her not to bring up such a dangerous topic. She dismisses Powers, stating he was lacking compared to someone as amazing as Short. She then reveals Powers was jealous and spread malicious rumors about him. A flashback shows Powers chained in a dungeon with a jester-like figure outside. Powers looks utterly shocked and enraged by his imprisonment. The jester, Olga, informs him his crime is spreading false information about the hero. Powers raves that Short will betray them all, but Olga simply thinks he's an idiot. Olga's expression is one of pure contempt for Powers' foolishness. In the present, Heroina suggests that now is the perfect time for them to be together. She grandly declares herself the special high priestess and idol of the kingdom. Wrapping her arms around Short, she asks if he still likes her after all this time. Katrina looks on, stunned into silence by Heroina's forwardness. Pushed to his limit, Short grabs Katrina and shouts that he is happy with her. His definitive declaration leaves Heroina completely shocked. The rejection sends Trappia into a rage, and she brandishes daggers in her fury. A close-up captures her intense and angry expression. Heroina tells Short to pay attention, but Katrina dismisses the smirking old man. Trappia yells in frustration at being completely ignored. Her anger finally boils over into a furious, guttural scream. Olga orders the special forces to seize the chattering Trappia. Heroina laughingly wonders why Olga is even in the meeting. Two massive guards hold the struggling Olga aloft in a strange pose. Olga protests futilely as the guards carry her out of the room. A heavy wooden door slams shut with a loud, definitive bang. Trappia menacingly suggests they should just throw Olga in the dungeon. The bearded general agrees, his arm shown in a powerful, decisive pose. The general lets out a booming laugh at the chaotic scene. Trappia laments that they finally got rid of the riffraff. The general's mood darkens as he notes the tense atmosphere, feeling they are being pushed to war. The air in the room grows increasingly agitated and chaotic. The large, ornate doors to the room begin to tremble violently. With a massive crash, the doors are thrown open. Trappia reacts with annoyance at yet another persistent interruption. An armored soldier kneels in the doorway, panting with exhaustion and urgency. He delivers the grave news that the Allied forces are invading the border. Trappia is horrified, realizing she has no time left to form a strategy. Short, however, calmly states that there is no strategy to be made. Trappia demands to know what he means, asking if they should just surrender unconditionally. He reflects that surrender seemed right at first, given the former king's injustice. But now, he admits he has become curious to see what will become of the kingdom. He tells a frustrated Trappia that the solution to their problem is simple. Climbing out a window, he announces he will go talk to the armies himself. He flies through the air like a blur, heading directly for the battlefield. As he travels, he muses that he would much rather be farming. His thoughts are on his recent harvest and what crops he should plant next. He runs at incredible speed through a desolate canyon, rapidly approaching the border. Arriving, he sees two armies clashing in what he had hoped was a minor skirmish. He realizes with dismay that a full-scale war has erupted. Kneeling, he unleashes a powerful wind spell to physically separate the battling forces. A young man unleashes a powerful blast of wind magic, sending armored soldiers flying. Kneeling amidst the chaos, he declares that now they will listen to him. He then materializes a magical megaphone, a custom spell he created himself. The amplified sound of him testing the device echoes across the battlefield. Standing between the armies, he announces he is Short, the hero who defeated the Demon King. A bandaged commander recognizes him as the hero who saved them from a great tsunami. Another leader recalls him as the powerful hero who made the Demon King retreat. Short smirks confidently, thinking his reputation will make negotiations much easier. The Hajimeno soldiers see his arrival as a sign that their victory is assured. Their commander bellows an order to seize the opportunity and attack immediately. A shocked Short throws up his hands, pleading with the charging army to stop. The soldiers ignore his desperate pleas and continue their relentless advance. Enraged, he proclaims he will stop them with his compulsion magic. With a cold expression, he sentences the unreasonable army to float in the sky for half a day. He cheerfully asks the Allied soldiers to guide him to their most important leader. They arrive at a fortified military tent behind a sharp wooden palisade. Inside, a stern, turbaned leader sits upon a simple throne, waiting for him. Short offers a friendly, simple introduction, announcing that he is Hero Short. The leader furiously accuses him of siding with the heretical Hajimeno kingdom. A shocked Short vehemently denies being allied with either the kingdom or the Allied forces. The leader is taken aback by his unexpected and passionate declaration. Short clarifies his position, stating that he is an ally to all of humanity. He explains his understanding of the Hajimeno kingdom's dire situation after a coup. The leader's eyes widen, acknowledging that the roots of the war are not simple. He passionately explains the Allied nations were formed from outrage over the kingdom's cruelty. Short is visibly shaken by the concept of an entire populace's will driving the conflict. The leader confirms he understands the heavy weight of this shared history. He recounts the immense suffering during the Demon King's era and the long recovery. An image shows the people's collective will being demonstrated in a powerful display. A flashback depicts the leader addressing a massive, cheering crowd from a balcony. In the present, Short uses telepathy to see the leader's true, unfiltered thoughts. The leader's face shows the strain of the sudden mental intrusion. Short questions if the people truly desire this war as the leader claims. He reveals a propaganda newspaper that was smuggled inside relief supplies. The leader confirms this newspaper was intentionally included in every shipment. Short is horrified by the articles, which are filled with vitriol against the Hajime no Kingdom. The leader admits the war cannot be stopped while these instigators exist. He asks Short to investigate the newspaper's publishers and find a way to stop them. The leader states he would gladly sacrifice his own life to save his people. He reveals the public plan. Short will act as a general, a decoy. Short accepts this dangerous role with a look of grim determination. The leader clarifies his only real task is to deliver a message to Trapaya. Short reassures him, stating that his primary job is to bring about a ceasefire. He returns to the battlefield, hurling a javelin high into the sky. Thinking he can't be seen as a sympathizer, he prepares a devastating attack. With a horizontal swing of his arm, he unleashes a wave of incredible energy. The powerful force tears through the battlefield, sending soldiers and debris flying. A massive, deep chasm is carved into the earth, separating the two armies. Using his megaphone, he declares a ceasefire and establishes a new, impassable boundary. He then orders both armies to disperse immediately and go home. The soldiers, staring into the abyss, decide it's best to retreat. Having single-handedly stopped the war, Short flies back towards the capital city. He lands gracefully, a faint aura of power dissipating around him. His female companions greet him, one scolding him for returning so soon. Another asks with concern if he was injured, but he casually reassures her. He announces he's stopped the war, shocking the princess who checks her magical hero card. The princess examines a propaganda newspaper, questioning its inflammatory contents. Short explains the conflict will continue as long as the kingdom is vilified. The cat-eared girl notes the articles don't reflect their actual peaceful lives. The blonde woman adds that the propaganda is a clear attempt to justify the war. Short confirms the newspapers were smuggled into various countries with aid supplies. Trapia's eye narrows with fury at the confirmation of this treacherous plot. She realizes someone is using the newspaper to instigate a quarrel with her nation. A shadowy figure thinks about the logistics, knowing records of the operation must exist. Trapia vows to crush the perpetrators, and Short entrusts the investigation to her. With the war over, Short cheerfully announces that he is going home. His companions protest, insisting they still need his strength on their side. Katrina clings to his back, playfully telling him not to be so cold and leave. Plain, a sage, leaps onto his back, declaring that she will join him. He waves a final goodbye as he's playfully dragged away from the capital. Plain introduces herself to a flustered Katrina as Short's other wife. She boasts of her extensive knowledge, claiming her magic surpasses even Short's. Short grumbles that it's a waste for a man like him to be stuck in the capital. Plain laughs, agreeing that politics and negotiations are a complete bore. Katrina assures Pline she will have fun in the wonderful hero's village. Pointing to their small settlement, Pline asks if this is the hero's village. Short explains they've just started recruiting and must build a house for Pline. Pline is delighted by the prospect of building her own home from scratch. She reveals she studied architecture, and Short is thrilled to have her expert help. He asks her to put her vast and varied knowledge to good use for the village. They approach a recently harvested field, a new challenge awaiting them. Croquet, a well-dressed frog-like villager, greets them, acknowledging Plain's wisdom. He explains that the harvest in this particular field is now finished. Croak poses a question, asking what the wise one thinks they should plant next. Plain's expression turns serious as she accepts the subtle challenge. Short watches, realizing this is a test of her famed knowledge. He wonders if she's feeling the pressure to prove her reputation. Plain asks for permission to enter the field, which Croak readily grants. With childlike joy, she steps onto a tilled field for the very first time. She scoops up a handful of soil, letting it run through her fingers. Crouching down, she determines that a simple visual inspection is not enough. She considers the surrounding geography and the state of the other plants. Her expression becomes focused as she declares that she now understands. She proposes a detailed crop rotation cycle to maintain the soil's health. Croak's expression is unreadable as he silently considers her expert plan. He stares at her for a long, tense moment, gauging her knowledge. He then firmly grasps her hand in a powerful handshake of approval. The group celebrates as the all-purpose sage. Pline officially becomes their companion. A heavy tool strikes the earth, signaling the return to peaceful daily life. Under the bright sun, Short and Croak work the land, their slow life truly beginning. A stressed young man complains about being unwillingly drawn into a war. With renewed vigor, he gives a thumbs up, eager to fully restart his slow life. While working the land, he asks his companions what they should plant next. His scholarly advisor, Kuraku, gravely explains the high probability of failure with their staple crops. When potatoes are suggested, Kuraku warns that continuously planting them would be a terrible mistake. The gravity of this potential terrible situation hits the young man with full force. His companion Pline explains that monoculture depletes soil nutrients, inviting disease. To avoid this, she continues, they must practice crop rotation by planting different things. She suggests a sustainable cycle of planting, harvesting, and returning nutrients to the earth. Kuraku listens to this explanation with a thoughtful expression of complete understanding. Pline points out they are currently resting the soil by mixing in their homemade compost. With a serious look, she cautions that they cannot leave the field fallow for long. Kuraku adds that without plants, nutrients will wash away and the soil will harden. The young man cheerfully suggests they simply get some seeds from the nearby village. Pline agrees it's a good idea, but notes they still lack deep agricultural knowledge. Considering the risks of failure, they must choose the next crop carefully, but lack manpower. A text panel emphasizes the heavy burden of field work and the risk of cascading failures. The trio contemplates their difficult situation with serious, pensive expressions. Their quiet deliberation is shattered by a sudden, collective scream of terror. A massive armored monster looms menacingly over two terrified newcomers. Short rushes to his friend Brust, asking what's happening as Brust urgently calls his name. One of the newcomers, Fuck, asks in awe if he is the legendary hero Short. Comically flustered, Short tries to deny his heroic identity. Kuraku floats down, telling Short there is no longer any need to hide it. With a burst of confidence, Short proudly declares himself the chief of Hero's Village. The two newcomers, now calm, share a drink, their fear completely gone. Fuck introduces himself and his wife, Mi, explaining they heard the village was recruiting. He reveals they were traveling performers looking for a home, as Mi is pregnant. Brust and Short are overjoyed by the news, exclaiming it will liven up the village. Fuck earnestly offers his services, willing to do any work they need. Brust insists the pregnant Mi shouldn't do hard labor and he'll find Fuck a job. Mi blushes, surprised that Fuck announced her pregnancy so openly. Brust suggests Mi could help Pline with the growing amount of housework. Mi gratefully accepts, mentioning that she is quite skilled at Western-style cooking. The mention of a new culinary style immediately piques Pline's interest. Mi shyly adds that she would also love to learn how to make clothes. She explains her basic sewing experience comes from making their performance costumes. Fuck gets Short's attention, mentioning the topic of clothing. He explains that before they were performers, their home village grew cotton. Though their village was burned in the war, he managed to save the precious seeds. He offers the pouch of cotton seeds to a surprised and intrigued Short. Kuraku's eyes gleam as he realizes the strategic value of establishing a cotton industry. He confirms with an excited Fuck that he is indeed an experienced cotton cultivator. Kuraku is ecstatic, calling Fuck a true artisan and vowing to create a magnificent field together. Fuck and Mi are overcome with emotion at this incredible opportunity. With tears in his eyes, Fuck expresses his gratitude for this unexpected chance. Brust laughs heartily, telling Fuck there are other jobs besides farming to be done. The door to a wooden building creaks open. Brust shows Fuck the inside of a small brewery. Fuck is surprised by the familiar fragrant scent of fermentation. Brust explains he could use a hand with brewing, surprising Fuck that they make sake. Short explains that Kuroku's race has a low tolerance for alcohol. He observes how well Fuck is fitting in, noting his excellent communication skills. Short then turns his thoughts to how Katrina and Mi are getting along. In the kitchen, Pline admits to Mi that she knows nothing about Western cooking. Mi explains it requires lots of spices and oil, which Pline realizes they lack. Short overhears, realizing their own cooking is limited to simple stews and stir-fries. Mi mentions that oil can be extracted from beasts, giving Short an idea. A determined spark in his eye, Short declares he will go find them some oil. Mi is shocked, asking where on earth he could possibly find any. Short confidently boasts that he knows of a monster that is full of oil. He proclaims that he's no longer bound by a hero's limits and is a different man. Promising to return with enough oil for fried food, he dashes away at incredible speed. At the edge of a large body of water, a creature emerges with a great splash. Short recognizes the bulbous plant-like monster, noting it hasn't changed a bit. He greets the Sabotinger by name as he runs toward it. In his haste, he trips and falls at the creature's feet. The giant cactus monster looms over him, a note explaining it stores water and oil. A flashback shows the creature's former menacing form as a demon lord general. A note explains that Short's friendship with the creature is a story in itself. The Sabotengar, now with a friendly expression, asks what brings him here today. Short explains that he needs oil, which is hard to come by in the human world. He clarifies that he wants to become self-sufficient in oil production. The Sabotengar flexes its massive muscular arm in response. A small seed-like object pops out from its bicep with a soft sound. The creature offers the seed, telling Short to raise this child of its. Short flies away, thanking his friend and promising to meet again. Back in the village, the seed has grown into a massive watermelon-like fruit. A spigot is expertly inserted into the side of the giant plant. A steady stream of clear oil flows from the spigot into a waiting pot. The villagers gather around, their faces a mixture of awe and delight. Karaku is speechless, calling the plant wonderful and a great help for their oil situation. Brust remarks that it's nothing like any normal plant he has ever seen. Karaku explains the significance of a plant that produces ready-made oil. He muses that this single plant could potentially save the entire country. Mi is ecstatic, exclaiming that she can finally make Western-style food. Short grins, pleased with his success, and brushes it off as no big deal. Mi's excitement fades as she remembers they still don't have any spices. She admits she only has a small amount she occasionally bought from merchants. Karaku notes that spicy things are bad for his sensitive mucous membranes. Plain listened thoughtfully, a new idea forming in her mind. She asks Short if he uses herbs often, and he confirms they're great in salads. With a bright smile, she explains that spices are simply dried or roasted herbs. A light bulb goes off for Short, realizing the fragrant herbs they use are spices. His eyes gleam with this powerful new culinary knowledge. He excitedly asks Katrina to gather all the herbs they can find. Karaku chimes in, saying he has also been gathering herbs for his research. The centerpiece of their feast, a massive roast, sizzles over an open fire. Short approaches Brust, who is tending the fire, and declares their timing is perfect. Brust agrees it's a great day for a barbecue, but notes this is something more. A young man with dark hair holds a pot of herbs, intending to combine them. With a confident grin, he unleashes a magical drying spell upon the collected plants. The resulting aroma immediately captivates a horned man and woman with its incredible fragrance. Turning his attention to a large roast, the young man prepares rock salt for seasoning. He dramatically anoints the sizzling meat, proclaiming it the village's greatest spice. His friends and fellow villagers eat with expressions of pure, unadulterated bliss. Their faces are a mixture of shock and delight at the meal's extraordinary flavor. One woman remarks that she has never tasted anything so fragrant in all her travels. A horned man named Fook laughs heartily, vowing to enjoy the next feast with sake. Short reflects with a smile, confident that the hero's village will continue to grow. The entire community raises their cups, cheering as they welcome a new villager. Some time passes under the bright sun as their settlement continues to thrive. The sound of a hammer striking wood signals that construction is underway. Fook peeks out from the doorway of a newly finished wooden house. He proudly calls out to Short, announcing that the new home is finally complete. Fook explains the house is human-sized and boasts of its modern, stylish design. Overcome with joy, Short runs around the new building, deeply moved by the sight. Katrina points out the covered walkway that conveniently connects their two homes. Mi explains the walkway is for mutual support, especially with her baby arriving soon. The two women share a heartfelt hug, with Mi thanking Katrina for her kindness. Mi wishes Katrina a healthy baby of her own, a sentiment filled with hope. Short is completely overwhelmed by the display, moved by his wife's gentleness. Mi playfully teases Short, reminding him that Katrina is also due to give birth. She jokes that since Katrina will need help, she'll take all the warm blankets. Fook becomes emotional, realizing that with Katrina also expecting, he's becoming a grandfather. He laughs boisterously, remarking on how happy Short must be. Short cheekily asks about Fook's age, noting how young he seems. Fuck reveals he is 33, shocking Short with their small age difference. A memory surfaces of Short's past life, struggling with job hunting on Earth. He recalls the long years he spent defeating the Demon King just to return home. Now he stands surrounded by friends and family, building a new life and community. The realization of how far he has come leaves him dazed with happiness. Snapping back to the present, he asks what they need to prepare for a baby. Katrina admits with a flustered look that she is completely clueless about childcare. Fuck explains that human children are far more delicate than those of his ogre race. A priestess suggests consulting an expert named Heroina, a name that startles Short. She explains Heroina works at an orphanage, though Short seems reluctant to get involved. He considers making something for them anyway, despite his reservations. His resolve hardens as he reflects on their goal of a self-sufficient life. Short declares they must buy the newest baby supplies for the sake of future generations. The priestess agrees their aim is a slow life, not a primitive one. Another villager worries about how they will afford such expensive items. A couple generously offers to teach them everything they know as a celebratory gift. Short realizes he must travel to the Hajime Kingdom to do the shopping. He worries about the state of the war, having been out of contact for some time. Using magic, he establishes a long-distance connection with a bearded man, Ensardi. He asks Ensardi about the war, who notes it has been half a year since they spoke. Ensardi explains the war was averted, but an embargo is now in place. Short looks concerned about the consequences this will have on the kingdom. Ensardi confirms that the flow of goods has been completely cut off. He reveals the capital is now booming with home gardens to achieve self-sufficiency. The kingdom, ironically, is now pursuing its own version of a slow life. Ensardi asks Short if he has any cooking oil, which has become scarce. A basket of fresh vegetables illustrates the capital's new focus on local produce. A sizzling pan of food highlights the widespread need for cooking oil. Short offers to share oil from the special cacti grown in his village. Ensardi happily agrees to meet him at their usual spot to pick it up. Short travels at incredible speed, flying through the air toward the capital. He lands gently in a city street, carrying Katrina in his arms. He suggests they enjoy a proper leisurely shopping trip this time. Their romantic moment is immediately interrupted by Ensardi's arrival for the oil. Ensardi looks apologetic for his poor timing and the awkward interruption. Short playfully chides him for crashing their date. The queen appears, thanking Short profusely for the cactus oil. Ensardi is shocked as he hadn't yet reported the plan to her. The queen gets uncomfortably close to Short, offering him the position of consort. Suddenly, the queen is sent flying through the air by an unseen force. Heroina appears, furiously accusing the queen of seducing another woman's husband. The queen insists it's an honor, while Heroina retorts she'd prefer plunder. Short frantically asks Ensardi what Heroina is even doing there. A chaotic argument erupts between the women over Short's true intentions. Katrina is left speechless, questioning the mention of a baby. Amused by the chaos, Short covers Katrina's mouth, finding the situation interesting. He takes charge, grabbing Katrina's hand and declaring it's time to shop. They walk down a quiet city street, leaving the argument behind them. The street is lined with baby supply stores, a sign of a citywide baby boom. The queen reflects on the new era of peace since the Demon Lord's defeat. She declares her intention to ride this big wave of opportunity. Her excitement is palpable as she fully embraces the new trend. Her expression is one of pure, manic determination and ambition. Heroina responds by throwing something small at her in disgust. The two women glare at each other, their rivalry unresolved. Heroina's eye is shown in a sharp, determined close-up. She admits to herself that she cannot remain involved with Short forever. Her expression is somber as she watches Katrina from a distance. Her eyes convey a deep sense of resignation and sadness. Katrina cheerfully tells Short she is going to go look at the shops. She instructs him and the others to wait outside while she browses alone. She pats a confused Heroina on the back as she leaves to go shopping. Katrina tells Heroina this is a special one-time exception. Heroina is left utterly shocked by Katrina's confident assertion. Back in a tavern, Heroina suggests that she and Short have a talk. The three companions sit in silence, sipping their drinks at a table. Heroina explains she was forced to become queen to save her nation from ruin. Short acknowledges that it was a difficult but decisive political move. He asks how they managed with the embargo cutting off their supplies. He points out that her country would have collapsed without its former king. Ensardi states that a strong husband is needed to stabilize the country. Short thoughtfully considers the serious implications of this political need. Ensardi and Heroina declare that they are talking about him. With an intense gaze, Trappia reveals her plan to use Short's power to subdue nations. A worried Short asks her if the current war situation is truly resolved. She confirms that the inflammatory anti-Hajimeno newspapers are still being published. There are rumors of a hero protecting the kingdom, a complication that annoys Short. With a smug look, Trappia confesses she was the one who spread that rumor. She leans in, praising Short for having saved countless people across the world. A flustered Short insists he's done nothing special, blushing at her earnest words. His great influence, she explains, is precisely why she needs him and his position. Her eyes gleam as she vows to use state power and dirty tricks to succeed. An immense aura of power radiates from her, warping the very air around them. Short and the bearded man sweat, visibly shaken by the sheer force of her will. The bearded man objects, telling her that her inhuman plan is going too far. Trappia lets out a flustered laugh as Short expresses his shock at her ruthlessness. The issue, the bearded man clarifies, isn't her ruling, but her cruel methods. He gravely warns that ruling through force will inevitably lead to future rebellion. The burden of ensuring her safety is placed on Short, a personal risk he must take. Looking panicked, the bearded man realizes there must be another option for her. Trappia interrupts, deciding she will explain the entire situation to Short herself. A new development is announced. She has received a formal marriage proposal. Short is completely shocked by this sudden news, his mouth hanging open. She collapses onto the table in mock despair, but Short asks why she seems happy. The proposal, she reveals, is from the second prince of the powerful Gunjoy Empire. He is amazed, imagining the strength of the army that fought the Demon King. Trappia explains the immense strategic value of an alliance with the Empire. She coldly adds that having a child would guarantee a long and lasting peace. A silent, somber moment passes as she contemplates this pragmatic, painful choice. Short grabs her shoulders, pleading with her not to say such heartbreaking things. A blushing Trappia shyly confesses that she likes him, calling him by name. Katrina's voice calls from the street, asking Short to help with their luggage. He stands, decisively ending their heavy discussion for the time being. He cheerfully tells Trappia the Gunjoy Prince is a good person, so they should get along. He then runs off to join his friends, leaving Trappia to watch him go. A flicker of frustration crosses her face as he leaves so casually. Her expression quickly shifts into a sly, confident smile. The bearded man notes her sudden change in mood, feeling a sense of unease. Her eye gleams with a new, unspoken plan taking form. The bearded man remarks on how frightening Short's nonchalance is in its own way. Her eyes narrow with determination, her resolve hardening for what comes next. A distant shot shows Short happily interacting with Katrina and their friends. The bearded man asks Trappia if she has made her final decision about the marriage. With quiet resignation, she confirms that she has. A sly smile returns as she declares that for royalty, love is separate from marriage. She watches Short and Katrina laughing together, her arms crossed in contemplation. She gently places a hand on her own stomach, her expression thoughtful and mysterious. The scene shifts to the group preparing to leave the city's market. Short uses his magic to load supplies into a crate as Katrina helps him. He announces they have all the baby supplies and are ready to fly home. Trappia mutters that he's just a convenient man, a useful tool for others. He boasts that he can do anything, but laments his failure to make bread. A small pouch is shown, perhaps containing something important to her. The mention of bread makes Trappia rush to his side, her face desperate. She pleads with him to take her to the hero's village. Short is completely taken aback by her sudden, intense request. A vision of Heroina's defiant vow flashes through his mind, filling him with dread. Katrina looks on with a perceptive, knowing expression, understanding the dynamic. Heroina is shocked as Katrina confronts her about her intentions toward Short. Katrina asks if Heroina truly believed she could win Short away from her. She then gently pats Heroina's head, saying she loves that strong-willed side of her. Short declares his absolute love for Katrina, leaving Heroina to grit her teeth. Yue passionately argues that the new village needs a church and offers her services. Short and Katrina listen to her proposal with serious, thoughtful expressions. Katrina agrees, noting a divine blessing would be good for their coming baby. Yue points out an empty room they can use until the church is built. Katrina reveals she and Short share a room, and the empty one was his. Short becomes flustered, asking if Yue is really coming to stay with them. Yue declares that it's settled and she's going, while Short encourages her. Yui reveals her job involves mobilizing young believers for the church's executive branch. Heroina reflects on how pleasant it is to be supported by her new companions. A dejected Yui explains she was banished for being a bad influence on believers. Katrina becomes flustered, thinking about how strange everyone is acting. Short asks Katrina what's wrong, and she explains a permit has been granted. She laughs, admitting she was just trying to avoid his gaze for a moment. Short notices Katrina's tired expression and asks what's wrong. He announces he's taking Heroina, Yui, back with them, and she cheers. He warns her to be careful, as their village is a remote backwater. Heroina is shocked by this unflattering description of their destination. He explains their self-sufficient community has no monetary economy. He grabs her dirty feet and uses his item box magic to clean them instantly. With his preparations complete, Short stands confidently, ready to depart. He tells Trappia he can't embrace any woman other than Katrina. Trappia reflects that Katrina has supported Short in ways she never could. Her hand is shown, a symbol of the support she couldn't provide. Katrina calls out Short's name, her expression filled with emotion. Trappia presents Short with a pouch of seeds as a gift. Short and Katrina examine the contents, realizing it's wheat. Trappia explains it's a special variety from the Empire, asking if he'll make bread. Short is thrilled, realizing the climate is perfect for growing them. He carefully puts the precious pouch of seeds away for safekeeping. He asks Trappia if she's moving forward with the marriage proposal. She confirms with a grim expression that it's her only option. Short scoops Katrina into his arms, declaring it's time to go home. He calls out a farewell, offering his help if they ever need it. Ensatsu and Trappia watch them fly away, leaving the city behind. Ensatsu recalls a detail he heard during a quarantine inspection. Trappia explains the seeds were a special, magically treated variety. Ensatsu notes the rainy season is coming, but Trappia dismisses the concern. Her expression becomes pained as she confesses she wanted to repay a favor. She laments that instead of repaying her debt, it has only grown larger. A shot shows Short and Katrina flying through the sky toward their home. They arrive back at their cozy cabin, greeted with warm smiles and tired relief. With energetic determination, Short declares his plan to unload their luggage immediately. His haste causes him to trip, sending a blonde woman and their supplies tumbling. He then grandly welcomes the newcomer to Hiro's village, who looks utterly unimpressed. The woman stares in disbelief at the single rustic house in the clearing. Her gaze sweeps over the vast empty forest, taking in the desolate surroundings. She exclaims in shock that there are only 2 buildings in the entire settlement. Short explains another house is by the river, but she finds it unimaginably remote. A group of villagers, led by a large horned man, warmly welcomes Short back. The newcomer introduces herself as Yui, a priestess, as the villagers express their excitement. A young couple, Fuku and Mi, introduce themselves and voice their joy at her arrival. Ai kindly asks the pregnant Mi about her health, and Mi reassures her. A sly, knowing smile spreads across Yui's face as she observes the scene. Her expression suddenly sours as she catches an unpleasant scent in the air. Wrinkling her nose in disgust, she cries out about the terrible, overwhelming stench. Seeing her friends, she's horrified that they are in such a smelly place. Kuroku proudly explains their sublime work of making fragrant, prideful fertilizer. Yui recoils in horror, whispering the word fertilizer with absolute dread. She despairs, having fled the Demon Lord's territory to escape this very thing. Kuroku cheerfully invites her to join them in mixing the compost together. Yui snaps at Short, exclaiming that his suggestion is completely out of line. Short gives a confident thumbs up, loudly declaring that he will handle it. He reminds Yui that he knows she is terrible at all forms of housework. Yui panics, realizing that in this self-sufficient village she must work to eat. Short calmly leads a protesting Yui to her new unpleasant chore. Later, a completely drained Yui mutters that her terrible ordeal is finally over. Kuroku praises her excellent handiwork as she is told to go to the bath. At the bath, Yui recalls that Kuroku gave her the wheat seeds. Kuroku explains that it's a bad time to plant due to the rainy season. Yui discovers the seeds have a special magic to protect them from rain. An idea strikes her to plant them with cotton, opening the path to bread. She reflects that while the fertilizer was awful, the nostalgic night sky is nice. Time passes, showing Yui diligently working in the fields with a hoe. The village leaders plan their community's expansion over a detailed map. Mi joyfully cradles her newborn baby, a symbol of the village's growth. The cotton they planted has grown tall, its fluffy bolls ready for harvest. The entire community joyfully gathers the bountiful cotton harvest together. The scene shifts to the grand royal capital of the Hajime-O Kingdom. A merchant furiously orders his men to gather materials, lamenting the poor quality. He sighs, realizing he only has 1 month left to fulfill his orders. Short suddenly appears, casually greeting the shocked merchant, who demands an explanation. With manic excitement, Short announces their village has finally harvested its cotton. The merchant confirms they have a spinning machine, and Short nods in agreement. The merchant explains that the timing is bad, an order will take 2 months. He reveals the reason. Princess Trapia's wedding date has been officially decided. Short explodes in anger, demanding to know why he wasn't contacted about this. The merchant asks Short to announce the village's success, offering him new coins. A pile of shining new coins is shown, representing the merchant's offer. Short agrees to the task as the merchant looks on with a serious expression. The merchant then urges Short to go and see Princess Trapia, who is waiting. With a sly grin, he reminds Short that she is also a hero. Short muses that he did save the world, but wonders about her true feelings. The merchant becomes emotional, his face contorting with worry for the princess. He pleads with Short to go and cheer her up before her wedding ceremony. Short looks on with a serious expression, sensing there is an ulterior motive. The merchant breaks down, admitting his embarrassment and begging Short to go. The scene pans across the grand, sprawling city of the royal capital. Arriving at the palace, Short tentatively calls out Princess Trapia's name. Trapia turns to face him from down an ornate and lavish hallway. He cheerfully reports that the wheat she gave them is growing splendidly. Her eyes narrow with a furious, intense light as she sees him approach. She unleashes her powerful telekinetic magic, blasting him with a wave of force. She angrily reminds him he can't just try to embrace her, she's his master. A bearded man observes them, noting the Hajime-No Kingdom seems to be at ease. Short tries to storm off, but she calls after him to wait for her. With cold determination, she reveals her wedding is next month, a formal invitation. Short is left speechless and stunned by her sudden, unyielding announcement. She tells him to go if he must, warning him that he absolutely must attend. Alone, Short realizes this is a royal command he cannot possibly disobey. He clutches his head in frustration, lamenting he can't make someone fall for him. With resignation, he decides he has no choice but to attend with Katrina. A title card announces the former hero's first ever experience with a wedding. A large bell rings out, its sound echoing through the sky, signaling the start. Inside a grand cathedral, the bride and groom stand before the altar. Short looks bored, while Katrina reacts with wide-eyed shock and horror. A close-up reveals the bride's stern, resentful glare from under her veil. Later at the reception, guests remark on the wonderful ceremony and food. A delicious-looking plate of pasta and other fine cold dishes are shown. Katrina is in a state of pure bliss, exclaiming how amazing it all is. She gushes about the beautiful dress while enjoying the food, as Short watches. A slight blush appears on Short's face as he observes his companion. He thinks to himself how much his wife is eating with such gusto. Katrina eagerly scans the buffet table, deciding what she should eat next. Short notices her pause and asks if something is wrong with the food. She explains that while the food is delicious, there are no warm dishes. Short explains that for VIPs, only exquisite cold dishes are served. Katrina tries a fish dish, marveling at its delicious jiggly texture. Short watches her fondly, once again noting her impressive appetite. He reflects that she eats as much as their friend Plust, a known big eater. With a blissful smile, Katrina tells him she loves a man who eats a lot. A man named Gilos approaches and asks if Short is enjoying the reception. He explains that they must remain vigilant even with the Demon Lord gone. Ilos grimaces, admitting that serving only cold food is for poison detection. He elaborates that delayed action poisons make food tasters less effective. Short casually suggests he could just use his detoxification magic on the food. Gilos is thrilled by this idea, declaring Short should be given an official post. Short tries to protest, but Gilos is already celebrating the brilliant solution. The bride, Trapia, rushes towards them, demanding to know why Short came. She explains that as a VIP guest, he should keep his distance from her. She's suddenly swarmed by noblewomen, becoming the center of their attention. Gilos explains that the women are trying to use her to get to Short. A thought reveals this is a gathering of women trying to make connections. Surrounded by nobles, Katrina waves, though her presence is deemed pointless for socializing. Short asks Gelos if this is a ladies' party, but Gelos explains it is a political affair. With a sharp gaze, Short realizes this chaotic situation presents a perfect opportunity for mischief. He prepares a wide-range detection spell as Gelos notes the kingdom's inability to react. The bride, Trapia, states she will declare the hero's protection over the kingdom. Gelos suddenly realizes that Short has vanished from his side without a trace. A waiter moves through the crowd, carrying an empty tray among the guests. With a sinister grin, the waiter reveals a small vial of poison. His thoughts reveal his plan to assassinate the humans who oppose the Demon King. The spy's eyes widen in terror as he is suddenly caught. Appearing from nowhere, Short grasps the spy's wrist, stopping him from using the poison. Short menacingly accuses the man of being a spy for the Demon King's cult. Trapia calls out in alarm as Short reveals the presence of a spy. With a sharp motion, Short firmly restrains the spy's hand. The cornered spy declares this is a perfect chance to eliminate the hero. He activates a self-destruct magic spell, his body beginning to glow with intense energy. Pointing a single finger, Short calmly commands an anti-magic spell to activate. The spy's clothes are blasted away as the powerful magic is instantly nullified. Left shirtless and powerless, the spy stammers in utter confusion and disbelief. Short declares the spy's final option is to summon a monster for judgment. The guests erupt in awe, murmuring about the hero's glorious return to action. As the crowd chants his name, Short becomes enraged by the unwanted attention. Massive banners celebrating Hero Short are unfurled across the city skyline. A luxurious carriage waits outside the grand venue under a crescent moon. On a balcony, Short complains about being used again, while Katrina looks shy. Trapia appears, suggesting it's fine and that he should go home now. With a soft smile, Trapia thanks Short for coming to the wedding. Short bluntly replies that he might visit again sometime, just to relax. He sweeps Katrina into his arms, leaping from the balcony to return home. In mid-air, a tearful Katrina realizes she now thinks weddings are wonderful. As she falls asleep, Short sighs that they won't eat the leftovers tomorrow. Back in their village, two birds chirp peacefully on a rooftop. The simple rustic church stands quietly in the village. Inside, Heroina wonders why anyone would want to use the church. Short bursts in, enthusiastically announcing he and Katrina will have a ceremony. He asks Heroina to officiate as she is the only hero in their village. Heroina playfully puts him in a headlock, accepting the important role. She declares she will do it, a job more vital than fertilizing fields. A peaceful view of the sky and trees sets a tranquil mood. The news spreads, and their demon friends react with shock to the wedding announcement. A large demon happily confirms that Short is finally holding the ceremony. The next morning, a woman enters a bedroom with a cheerful greeting. Katrina sits on the bed, clutching her stomach in discomfort. A concerned Short rushes to her side, asking what is wrong. She explains that she has been feeling unwell since the morning. He asks if she has a stomach ache, but she says it's something else. A companion suggests using recovery magic, mentioning Heroina is a professional. Heroina examines Katrina, her expression serious and concerned. She looks at the clueless couple, asking if they really haven't noticed. Her face contorts in a look of comical shock and disbelief. She exclaims that this is impossible, as Short demands to know what's wrong. Katrina and Short look on, confused by her dramatic reaction. With a stunning revelation, Heroina announces that Katrina is pregnant. Their friends erupt in joyous celebration, congratulating the new father, Short. A massive banner unfurls, emblazoned with the word, "Congratulations!" Katrina becomes flustered as her friends talk about holding the ceremony now. The talk of a ceremony sends Katrina into a state of shocked embarrassment. The idea of a wedding with Short leaves her blushing and speechless. Overwhelmed with emotion, Short roars his gratitude to Katrina across the land. He pulls her into a tight emotional embrace as their friends look on. Katrina returns the hug, her eyes closed in a moment of shared joy. With a happy, blushing smile, she tells him she should be thanking him. Their friends applaud, their faces filled with happiness for the couple. Holding her, Short marvels at the future he never imagined, becoming a father. He vows to use all his power to ensure a safe delivery for their child. Katrina's father places a supportive hand on Short's shoulder, offering his help. He tells Short to ask him for anything he needs, offering his full support. He accepts his new role as a senior figure, having raised his own daughter. Short realizes the man will be his mentor in fatherhood and slow living. He bows deeply, asking for his father-in-law's guidance, which is gladly given. The father playfully ruffles both of their hair, overjoyed by the news. He sits alone, musing that Katrina's mother would be happy in the afterlife. The women are overjoyed, their wishes for Short's happiness now completely fulfilled. A small creature comically asks when the egg will be born, confusing Short. Short sternly forbids the creature's inappropriate joke about investigating Katrina's condition. Filled with purpose, Short takes Katrina's hand, declaring it's time to go. Katrina looks at him, surprised but willing to follow his lead. He scoops her into his arms as she asks where they are going. With a determined grin, he announces they are going to buy a wedding dress. The view of their village chapel sets the scene for the preparations. A woman named Brain plans the ceremony, needing flowers and decorations. Short bursts in, enthusiastically volunteering to direct the decoration placement. Brain explains some supplies are only available in the distant capital. He vanishes in a blur of motion, using his incredible speed to run the errand. Brain calmly notes that the trip to the capital will take half a day. Short reappears instantly with the supplies, exclaiming how convenient his power is. Brain hands him a diagram, instructing him to follow the decoration plan. With a look of manic determination, Short declares he is ready for the next task. He rushes to Brain again, demanding she teach him how to conduct the ceremony. She calmly asks him why he is in such a hurry. He frantically explains the dress is done and he must marry Katrina immediately. Brain notes his high tension but agrees to help, seeing his excitement. A craftsman announces the dress is complete, having rushed the special order. He presents the exquisite gown, woven from village cotton and flowers, to Katrina. Katrina marvels at the fabric's incredible smoothness, a stunning achievement. The craftsman proudly states its quality surpasses even goods from the capital. He offers to teach her weaving to pass the time until the baby arrives. Short is seen diligently practicing his ceremonial duties. He bursts out, declaring with a grin that all preparations are now complete. A man excitedly asks Katrina to show him what kind of wedding dress she will wear. The day of the wedding arrives, with a rustic chapel beautifully decorated for the ceremony. Guests gather outside, with one commenting on the simple pastoral atmosphere of the venue. Katrina's father weeps with unrestrained joy, while other guests express their own desire for a wedding. An older woman informs a serious-looking girl that the bride and groom are finally ready. The officiant raises her hand, announcing the start of the ceremony and asking for silence. A close-up captures the nervous groom and the blushing bride standing side by side. As their entrance is announced, the couple stands ready to begin their procession down the aisle. The groom, Short, suddenly stumbles in a comical fit of pre-ceremony panic and anxiety. His bride, Katrina, looks on with wide-eyed shock at her groom's sudden flustered outburst. Short catches Katrina, his face a mask of surprise as he finds himself holding her. She gently tells the overwhelmed Short to calm down as they stand before the chapel doors. Now composed, the couple shares a warm, confident smile before preparing to finally enter. The groom's hand rests on the large wooden chapel door, ready to push it open. The doors swing open to reveal their cheering friends, showering them in a cascade of flowers. The guests erupt in a joyous celebration, throwing petals and welcoming the happy couple. Short and Katrina stand serenely amidst the celebration, their faces filled with love and happiness. Flower petals continue to rain down, symbolizing the joyous atmosphere of the wedding ceremony. A group of their close friends, including a horned man and a frog-like creature, laugh heartily. More guests, including a bald man and a woman with a blindfold, celebrate with tears and joy. A caption explains that Yui Shrine-style weddings are exceptionally lively and boisterous affairs. Short happily observes the lively wedding, while the officiant tries to quiet the boisterous crowd. Katrina, overcome with emotion, exclaims how beautiful she is before yelling at the guests to be quiet. The officiant lets out a long, exasperated sigh, giving up on controlling the rowdy crowd. Clearing her throat, she prepares to begin the formal part of the wedding ceremony. She turns to the groom, asking if he vows to love his wife, Katrina, forever. Short's face fills the frame as he shouts his affirmative answer with absolute conviction. Through her veil, Katrina looks up at Short, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears of joy. The officiant now asks Katrina if she vows to love her husband, Short, for all time. With fierce determination, Katrina makes her own passionate vow, declaring they will be together forever. The guests roar with approval, excitedly shouting for the couple to seal their vows with a kiss. Surrounded by their friends, Short and Katrina share a passionate kiss under a shower of petals. The quaint rustic chapel stands as the site where their new life together has begun. The newly married couple bursts through the doors, running hand in hand down the path. The officiant formally announces that Short and Katrina are now husband and wife, blessed by the shrine. A guest claps Short on the shoulder, telling him he has gotten himself a good wife. The officiant comments on the chaos, and Short agrees it was a proper, lively wedding. With a determined glint in his eye, Short announces he has a gift for everyone. He unleashes his meat grilling magic, causing meat to cook perfectly in mid-air. Guests eagerly take plates of the sizzling meat, declaring it perfect for a wedding feast. One guest notices the aroma is different, while another takes a bite with great curiosity. Their eyes go wide with shock and delight at the incredible, unexpected flavor of the meat. A horned guest bellows in disbelief, asking if this is the legendary rare beef. Another guest confirms it's a famous brand, a super premium ingredient fitting for the occasion. A spiky horned man points towards a new surprise, recognizing it as something of Pluto's. The villagers energetically roll a large wooden barrel into the center of the celebration. The heavy barrel lands with a solid thud, ready to be tapped for the party. They proudly present their surprise, a barrel of freshly brewed Ogoyan sake for the feast. Short is stunned, exclaiming in disbelief that they actually managed to complete it in time. The guests cheer, eagerly calling for the first toast with the hero's village's new brew. Katrina looks on with slight concern at the mention of alcohol, given her condition. A thoughtful Karaku offers the pregnant Katrina a special non-alcoholic Ogoyan juice instead. Short raises his glass high, making a toast to their hard work and happy future. A resounding kanpai echoes as everyone clinks their glasses together in celebration. Short takes a sip of his juice, remarking with a blush that it's not bad at all. He sits on a log, savoring the drink and the peaceful moment of the wedding party. He takes another sip, enjoying the unique flavor of the special village beverage. The text describes the faint sweetness and the distinct lingering aroma of the Ogoyan fruit. Trapia approaches to congratulate Short on his wedding, and he thanks her warmly. She admits she never thought they'd have a child and is overjoyed for them. Her expression turns serious as she asks why he chose Katrina over her. Caught mid-chew, Short is flustered by the direct and unexpected question from his old companion. He explains that it's a simple story, though he's embarrassed to mention Katrina's voracious appetite. He wraps an arm around Katrina, declaring that she is the woman he fell in love with. Another female guest's eye widens as she processes his heartfelt declaration of love. The woman, with a look of resignation, admits that she cannot compete with their love. She acknowledges their bond is real and calls Katrina a truly wonderful woman. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Katrina lets out a cry of flustered frustration at Short. She lands a solid punch on his jaw, yelling at him for his public declaration. As he's sent flying, Short thinks to himself with a grin that it was a good punch. Later that night, Short steps outside, noting the party will likely last until morning. He stands in a field of wheat, proudly observing how much the crop has grown. He sits alone, gazing at the moon and mountains, lost in quiet contemplation. His thoughts drift to his past life, where he could traverse the cosmos with ether. He looks pensive, reflecting on the powers he once had and the limits of this world. He acknowledges that he cannot transcend this world's boundaries as he once could. He remembers that on Earth, he was just an ordinary person, unlike his current self. He wonders what would happen if his current self were to go to that other world. His hand clenches slightly as he ponders the possibilities and his current path in life. Katrina's voice calls his name, startling him out of his deep, wandering thoughts. He asks if she's had enough meat. She replies that she wants to walk a bit. She mentions her dress isn't uncomfortably tight and she can still eat more. With a happy smile, she adds that there's something else she wants to do. Under the full moon, she twirls gracefully, wanting to feel like a bride a little longer. Short watches her, his expression filled with a sudden, intense, and loving emotion. He sinks to one knee before her, taking her hands in his in a grand gesture. He kisses her hand, pledging his eternal love to Princess Katrina with a flourish. He looks up, playfully asking if this grand gesture now makes him a hero too. She laughs, reminding him of what he said at the party about his feelings for her. Her expression melts into one of pure, tearful love as she gazes at him. His expression turns sincere as he says that just being short is more than enough. They embrace tightly in the quiet moonlight, surrounded by floating petals of light. Short thinks to himself that he is no match for Katrina's wonderful nature. She smiles, telling him she sees through him and knows everything about him. He reflects that she was aware of his past life on Earth all along. They stand together, looking at each other with deep affection and mutual understanding. She tells him he is a truly wonderful husband, her eyes shining with love. The newly married couple stands hand in hand, looking out over a vast, newly tilled field. As time passes, they stand in the same spot, the field now a bountiful harvest. The harvest is brought in, with large bundles of grain hanging to dry in the sun. In a field of golden wheat, Short skillfully reaps the harvest with a sickle. He pauses, admiring the tool's elegant curve, perfectly shaped for its task. Katrina arrives with lunch, and a grinning Short thanks his honey. With a soft expression, Katrina looks on at her husband. A wide shot reveals a vast landscape cleared for farming, dotted with stumps. Katrina closes her eyes, a serene and happy smile gracing her lips. A memory surfaces of a younger, smaller Katrina looking sad and alone. The memory shifts to her riding on her father's shoulders, overlooking their new home. As a child, she reached out with wonder towards sparkling motes of light. In the present, she repeats the gesture, a few sparkles appearing around her hand. A close-up on her eye reveals a scent has triggered a memory of her childhood. Short asks if she's alright, and she explains she was just reminiscing. Leaning against him, she thanks him for bringing her to their village. Katrina notes that the air has suddenly become much more humid. She realizes with a start that it's more than just humidity in the air. Rain begins to fall heavily upon the bundles of drying wheat. Short quickly shields Katrina with a cloth, noting the rainy season's arrival. She voices her concern that their precious harvest will be ruined. The wheat bundles are shown getting thoroughly soaked by the downpour. Short realizes that if left as they are, the harvested grains will surely rot. Burst rushes through the rain, announcing that their preparations are complete. A newly built wooden warehouse stands ready, smoke rising from its roof. He proudly presents the new, large warehouse he built for the village. Peeking inside, Katrina is surprised by an unexpected wave of warmth. Within, a controlled fire dries the wheat hanging safely from the rafters. Short explains their plan to use the modified warehouse as a drying kiln. A woman named Brain points out the raised floor that allows for heating. Burst explains that a vent in the ceiling allows the smoke to escape. He warns of the fire hazard, proposing a 3-shift watch for the night. The diligent watch continues for several days. Short tends the fire, his expression weary from the monotonous task. He sighs to himself, lamenting how the job has become a tedious chore. Heroina arrives, asking if he is on the boring watch duty. Annoyed by the task, she hurls a bundle of wheat at him. A startled Short yelps in surprise as he dodges the projectile. He demands to know why she's here, and she retorts that the wheat is her concern. She begins to aggressively thresh the wheat with a wooden flail. With powerful blows, she separates the grain from the stalks. She works with a frantic energy, venting her bottled-up frustrations. Short asks if she wants to talk about what's stressing her out. She demonstrates the technique of beating the wheat to loosen the grains. Next, she tosses the mixture into the air to begin the winnowing process. She explains that the wind will carry away the lighter, unwanted chaff. This method ensures only the heavier, valuable kernels of wheat remain. Her expression becomes obsessive as she mutters about an endless cycle of wheat. Sensing a deeper issue, Short decides it's best not to pry. Watching her work with the grain gives Short a brilliant idea. He excitedly tells Katrina that he will bake bread for her tomorrow. Katrina looks at the hanging bundles, finally realizing they are wheat. Short explains that the time has come to make bread for their family. With a determined fist pump, he declares his intention to bake. The next day arrives bright and clear. Short proudly presents a bowl of pristine white flour to an amazed Katrina. He boasts that he ground it all by hand, pouring his love into the work. Katrina marvels at how pure the flour is, with no stones or sand mixed in. Burst reveals a magic item that could have done the job automatically. This revelation leaves Short completely stunned. He is momentarily dismayed that his painstaking effort was unnecessary. A flashback shows him diligently grinding the wheat by hand. Shaking off his disappointment, he declares it's time to make bread. He then loudly admits that he has no idea how to actually do it. Katrina confesses her own ignorance, believing bread is a luxury item. The other villagers speculate that only a professional would know the recipe. Heroina watches their clueless discussion with a weary expression. A close-up shows her tired, unimpressed eyes. She finally raises her hand, announcing that she knows the basics. Following her instructions, Short begins to knead the dough. Heroina explains the next steps, add salt, then shape the dough. He works the mixture into a smooth, round ball. Katrina carefully places the flattened dough onto a hot stone to bake. After a surprisingly short time, Short announces that it's finished. Both he and Katrina are amazed at how simple the process was. Heroina explains that basic staple foods are often easy to prepare. Short eagerly tears off a piece and offers it to Katrina to try. They both take a bite of the fresh, warm flatbread. Katrina exclaims how delicious it is, its simple flavor perfect for any dish. Inspired, Short declares the start of the hero's village bread festival. The celebration begins with everyone gathered around the fire to bake. The happy villagers receive their portions of the freshly made bread. Burst enjoys his bread with a thick slice of salted meat. Brain holds a plate of bread topped with a fresh herb salad. Short notes how the plain bread perfectly complements various toppings. Karaku happily chews on raw dough, savoring the quality of the wheat. Katrina arrives with a pot, and Short wonders what he should eat. She offers him stew, and he agrees it's a perfect pairing. As he eats, he notices the stew's flavor is simpler than usual. He dips a piece of bread into the stew and takes a thoughtful bite. The combination of flavors sparks a profound realization in his mind. Katrina shyly asks if he remembers the first time they ate stew together. Short is stunned into silence, his spoon frozen in his hand. He realizes their new life together truly began with that simple meal. Overwhelmed with emotion, he pulls Katrina into a passionate hug. Nearby, another couple watches their affectionate display with amusement. The woman playfully feeds her partner a piece of bread. Katrina teasingly asks Short if he wants her to feed him too. He eagerly opens his mouth and shouts that he absolutely does. A drunken and emotional Heroina suddenly grabs him from behind in a huge hug. The festival continues late into the night with boisterous energy. Heroina, now thoroughly inebriated, screams for more sack. Burst calmly offers water to a weary Short and a passed-out Heroina. A young man named Short lets out a hearty, satisfied sigh of contentment. He cheerfully tells his companion Brust they can bake bread daily, but Brust seems doubtful. A fair-haired woman calls his idea unrealistic, which catches Short completely by surprise. Brust points out that the impending dry season presents a new challenge. With more villagers, he explains, their need for water has grown significantly. He adds that he has a great deal of construction work to attend to. The woman notes that the heavily pregnant Katrina cannot be asked to draw water. Brust concludes they lack the manpower for daily bread making, making Short despair. The woman teases him, asking why the great hero can't just solve everything. He argues that a slow life is about the routine, not instant powerful solutions. In his frustration, he accidentally spills a cup of water on the ground. Looking down, he cries out in dismay at the wasted water. He kneels, whispering the word water with intense focus. His finger hovers over the puddle as he concentrates his power. A sudden spark of inspiration flashes across his determined face. Leaping up, he announces his grand plan to build an irrigation channel. Their companion Karaku proudly unfurls a blueprint, having already designed the channel. Karaku explains that water is the crucial element for their future plans. He cautions that the project is far too large for their current manpower. Short listens thoughtfully, his mind already formulating a new strategy. A powerful aura erupts as he decides to use his magic for the heavy work. He will carve the main path, leaving the finishing touches for the villagers. With the channel complete, Karaku notes they can now create rice paddies. The mention of rice paddies sends a jolt of pure excitement through Short. He announces to a confused Brust that they are moving to the next phase. The immense magical effort leaves him completely drained of energy. Standing before the new rice plants, he exclaims their name with pure wonder. Brust explains that this is the white grain cultivated in eastern paddies. Short passionately describes rice as a superfood, making Katrina excited to try it. The two of them daydream together about the deliciousness of freshly cooked rice. He turns to the pregnant Katrina, asking with a smile what's wrong. She looks dazed and unwell, her hand resting gently on her stomach. With a look of sudden shock, she announces that she's going into labor. The entire group stares in a state of collective, wide-eyed panic.